Many chosen ones are undergoing a profound spiritual awakening. This awakening does not happen suddenly but gradually opens their eyes and hearts to a broader reality than they once experienced. This process of awakening to what truly matters in life, to what is genuine and authentic, is transformative, yet also unsettling. The search for truth and authenticity becomes the central focus of their spiritual journeys, inevitably placing them in conflict with traditional religious environments. What was once comforting, like the rituals and conventional practices of the church, may now seem empty, devoid of meaning. Words and gestures that once touched the soul of the chosen have lost their potency. Instead of sensing the presence of the divine in these moments, they begin to feel an increasing disconnection. What once felt sacred now seems like a series of mechanical acts, as if spirituality has been lost amidst tradition and repetition. The chosen ones start to ask, where is the truth here? Where is the authenticity my soul longs for? This questioning is natural and inevitable for someone in search of a deeper spirituality. They realize that many church rituals are empty traditions, upheld for generations without anyone stopping to question their true spiritual value. To the chosen, these practices seem disconnected from real connection with the divine. Authentic spirituality, to them, is not something that can be contained in a liturgy repeated week after week. It is something alive, dynamic, flowing, and transforming as the soul grows. They begin to understand that true spiritual connection is much deeper than participating in standardized rituals. It is an intimate journey, an ongoing dance with the divine, where each step is unique and full of purpose. They wish to feel this connection in every aspect of their lives, not just in a specific place or time. This search for authenticity leads the chosen to gradually disconnect from what is imposed or expected of them in religious settings. They are not rejecting God. On the contrary, they are seeking a deeper, truer connection. However, as this search intensifies, the distance from the traditional church becomes inevitable. The contrast between what they experience as true and what they see as superficial practices in the church pushes them away from these structures. There is pain in this process, as many chosen ones have deep ties with religious communities. Yet, the thirst for authenticity is stronger than the desire to belong to a structure that no longer resonates with their souls. They begin to understand that true connection with the divine does not depend on a building or repetitive rituals but rather on a constant, sincere communion with the spiritual source within them. This spiritual awakening and the awareness of inauthenticity in churches are not a rejection of faith but an evolution of it. For the chosen, leaving the church is not abandoning spirituality but finding a more authentic way to live it. As the chosen continue on their spiritual journey, they begin to notice a profound disconnect between the rigid dogmas of the church and the living spirituality they long for. Dogmas, with their fixed rules and often unchanging interpretations, seem to limit the flow of true spiritual experience. What is presented as the only unquestionable truth in churches often does not align with what the chosen begin to feel in their hearts. These dogmas, which were meant to be a bridge to spirituality, start to transform into barriers. Instead of being a source of inspiration and freedom, they become fences that limit what is allowed to be felt, believed, and lived. For the chosen, who are on a genuine quest for something greater, this limitation becomes unbearable. They can no longer accept a spirituality defined by rigid rules and unchanging dogma because they know that true spirituality is much more expansive. The chosen feel that their connection with the divine cannot be encapsulated within a set of fixed beliefs or traditions. The spirit is free, fluid, and constantly transforming. They realize that to experience the fullness of this spirituality, they need to free themselves from structures that bind them to a predetermined belief system. This doesn't mean they reject all church teachings but rather recognize that spirituality goes far beyond any doctrine or limited interpretation. Guided by intuition and the inner voice of the Spirit, the chosen begin to question the religious structures they once followed blindly. Philosophical questioning becomes an essential part of their journeys. They are not seeking easy answers or absolute truths but rather a deeper, more authentic understanding of the divine and existence itself. They want to explore, challenge, and expand their views, and, unfortunately, churches often do not provide space for this kind of exploration. For the chosen, spirituality is a journey of constant growth. It cannot be contained or defined by a set of dogmas. Spiritual fluidity and freedom are essential to their growth, making them feel increasingly disconnected from religious structures that insist on confining spirituality within a mold. Additionally, the chosen feel that the true spiritual path is a direct experience with the divine, without intermediaries or systems filtering this connection. They realize that to find the truth they are seeking, they must trust their spiritual intuition. This trust in intuition and spirit leads them to challenge teachings presented as unquestionable and to follow the path their hearts indicate. This disconnection from dogma is painful for many chosen, as it can lead to a sense of isolation or even disapproval from their religious communities. However, they understand that this separation is necessary to expand their spirituality and reach the deep connection with the divine they desire. They are willing to face the discomfort and uncertainty that come with leaving rigid structures behind because they know that by doing so, they are moving toward a more authentic and living spirituality. The rejection of dogma and the search for a more fluid spirituality are not signs of rebellion or disrespect but rather a deep need for truth. The chosen can no longer follow something that does not resonate with their souls. They understand that the spiritual path is unique for each person and that to find the truth, they must follow their path rather than adhere to rules imposed by others. The rejection of materialism is another critical point in the chosen's spiritual journey. As they progress on their path of self-discovery, many begin to see that the churches they grew up in or attended for years often seem excessively concerned with the material world. This concern with wealth accumulation, building opulent temples, and funding grand projects contradicts the spiritual values the chosen seek to cultivate in their lives. The chosen, in their quest for a deeper connection with the sacred, often see materialism as a distraction from what truly matters. They understand that true wealth is not in material possessions but in spiritual development and the depth of their relationship with the divine. For many, this creates a disconnect with churches that, in their view, have lost focus in favor of financial interests. Materialism can then be perceived as a way to divert the faithful's attention from what truly matters. Instead of focusing on spiritual growth, serving others, and elevating the soul, many churches seem more concerned with financial donations and material prosperity. This shift in focus is something the chosen can no longer ignore. They seek a spirituality that inspires them to transcend attachment to material goods and focus on inner development. This rejection of materialism is often accompanied by a profound rediscovery of the sacred. The chosen realize that true spirituality cannot be measured by material standards. They distance themselves from beliefs that divine blessings are demonstrated through wealth or material success and begin to see the sacred in simple things. In nature, genuine human connections, and inner peace. This rediscovery process is transformative as it allows them to experience the divine in a way that is not mediated by institutions or material wealth. For many, this rejection of materialism also brings a return to simplicity. The chosen start to value a simple life, renounce excess, and focus on what truly brings meaning. They see that the pursuit of material possessions can easily become an endless cycle leading to dissatisfaction and disconnection from the divine. Instead of following this path, they choose to live more authentically and minimally, dedicating more time and energy to their spiritual growth. Moreover, the chosen understand that the focus on materialism often reflects a superficial spirituality. They realize that many churches preach financial prosperity as a sign of divine favor, but this message doesn't resonate with those seeking something deeper. For the chosen, the sacred cannot be bought or attained through material wealth. The sacred resides within each of us, accessible through reflection, meditation, and genuine connection with the divine. The chosen also begin to question how this focus on materialism affects the community dynamic within churches. Often, the pursuit of financial status creates hierarchies within congregations, where those with more material wealth are seen as more blessed or spiritually elevated. For the chosen, this type of hierarchy contradicts the principles of true spirituality, which values equality and genuine connection between people. Distancing themselves from churches because of materialism is, therefore, a conscious choice made by the chosen to honor the sacred in a way that aligns with their deeper spiritual values. They recognize that the material world is temporary and illusory, while spiritual growth is eternal. By rejecting materialism, they open themselves to a more authentic and transformative spiritual experience, where wealth is measured not in terms of possessions but in terms of wisdom, inner peace, and connection with the divine. This encounter with the sacred, away from material distractions, is one of the primary reasons many chosen leave churches. They feel that by freeing themselves from concerns about the material world, they can draw closer to what is eternal and true. In this process, they find a peace and fullness that money could never offer. The power of spiritual individualism is one of the most profound marks on the chosen's journey. As these individuals begin to distance themselves from traditional religious structures, they also realize that their spirituality needs to be unique and personal. Each chosen one feels, deep down, that the spiritual journey cannot be dictated by external rules or by a community that often imposes a standardized form of faith. This process of spiritual individualism begins with the understanding that the path to the divine is both a solitary and deeply personal journey. The chosen realize that their relationship with the divine is like a fingerprint, unique and unrepeatable. Although religious institutions offer a collective roadmap, the chosen feel a deeper calling to discover their own form of spiritual connection, a path that can only be defined by themselves. Spiritual individualism is, therefore, an affirmation of freedom. It is not a rejection of faith itself but rather a way of living it more authentically. The chosen no longer feel compelled to follow rituals, dogmas, or traditions that do not resonate with their inner truth. Instead, they trust their intuition and what they feel is true in their hearts. This trust in one's own inner wisdom is a sign of spiritual maturity, where the chosen understand that their connection with the divine does not need to be validated by human intermediaries or religious institutions. The freedom that spiritual individualism provides also comes with a great sense of responsibility. By choosing their own path, the chosen must also be willing to confront their shadows, fears, and doubts without relying on a community for ready-made answers. This can be challenging, but it is also an opportunity for profound growth. By stepping away from easy answers, the chosen are forced to explore the depths of their own soul, to seek answers within themselves, and to trust that their journey, however unique, is being guided by the divine. Many chosen realize that within a religious community, there is a tendency to conform to the norm. There is pressure to do what everyone else is doing, to adopt the same language, the same rituals, and the same way of expressing faith. For the chosen, this conformity can become stifling. They feel a burning desire to express their spirituality authentically, without the constraints of external expectations. This desire for authenticity leads them to break away from the community and follow a path that allows them to be true to themselves. The search for spiritual individualism is often accompanied by a sense of liberation. The chosen begin to realize that by following their own path, they can explore new ways of connecting with the divine that were previously inaccessible within traditional religious structures. Some may feel drawn to spiritual practices outside the church's repertoire, such as meditation, nature contemplation, spiritual art, or even the study of spiritual philosophies from other cultures. This exploration allows them to expand their view of the sacred, discovering that spiritual truth is vast and multifaceted. This process of discovery also includes a deepening in their intuition. The chosen begin to see that the voice of the divine is not something distant but something that speaks directly to their hearts and minds. They learn to trust this inner voice, realizing it is their true guide on their journey. Confidence in one's own intuition becomes a spiritual compass, leading them to places of growth and healing that no institution could provide. Spiritual individualism is also, in many cases, a response to disillusionment with the idea of collective faith. For the chosen, true connection with the divine cannot be lived mechanically or imposed by a majority. They see that what works for one person may not work for another and that the divine manifests in infinitely varied ways. Thus, the chosen reject the notion that there is a single correct way to live spirituality, embracing the diversity of human spiritual experiences. However, this spiritual individualism does not mean that the chosen are alone on their journey. On the contrary, they can find inspiration in others who are also forging unique paths. Yet, these connections are based on authenticity and respect for each individual's journey, rather than a need for conformity or mutual approval. The chosen learn to celebrate spiritual diversity, recognizing that while each path is unique, everyone is, in some way, seeking the same divine truth. The freedom offered by spiritual individualism is liberating but also challenging. Without the rules and boundaries imposed by a religious community, the chosen must be their own guardians of spiritual ethics. They no longer have an external authority telling them what is right or wrong and must trust in their own moral and spiritual compass. This freedom requires maturity and discernment but also allows the chosen to live their spirituality fully and authentically. Ultimately, spiritual individualism is a path of self-knowledge and personal fulfillment. By moving away from religious structures that impose a standardized spirituality, the chosen find a way to connect with the divine that is deeply personal and meaningful. They discover that by trusting themselves and their intuition, they can access a spirituality that is truly transformative. The search for smaller and authentic communities is a natural reflection of the spiritual individualism that many chosen ones experience as they distance themselves from large religious institutions. Once they realize the need for a deeper, more personalized spiritual connection, they also begin to seek forms of communion that resonate with this new way of living their faith. Disconnecting from large churches does not necessarily mean rejecting community itself, but rather desiring to find environments where they can express themselves more authentically and truly. Large churches, with their rigid hierarchies and standardized rituals, often create a sense of detachment between the individual and divinity. For the chosen, these structures may feel stifling and artificial, and they long for something more intimate and personal. This is where the desire arises to find smaller communities where spirituality can be lived more organically and free of formalism. These communities do not necessarily need to be physical. They may exist in virtual spaces, in small spiritual study groups, or even in casual gatherings with like-minded souls. Historically, this search for simplicity and authenticity is reflected in the early Christian communities. In the time of the apostles, spiritual gatherings took place in believers' homes, where there were no large temples or formalized religious structure. What united these people was a deep desire to share their faith sincerely, without the need for intermediaries or hierarchies. Each person contributed their own spiritual experiences, and the focus was on genuine communion and mutual support. For many chosen ones, this simplicity is deeply attractive, reflecting the purity of spirituality lived heart to heart. The desire to return to this simpler and more authentic form of communion is a response to the frustration with what modern churches have become. The formality of rituals, the bureaucracy of institutions, and the focus on material matters often alienate the chosen, who feel that the true sense of spiritual community has been lost. They long for a space where they can share their spiritual experiences without judgment, where they can be vulnerable and authentic without the pressures of conforming to a particular doctrine or practice. Moreover, for the chosen, the concept of community does not need to be tied to a specific physical space. Many of these souls connect online, in groups that share a similar spiritual vision, where they can exchange ideas and support each other in their journeys. The information age and social media have allowed these small communities to flourish, creating global networks of spiritual support. Though not physically together, these virtual communities offer a sense of belonging and connection that the chosen often do not find in traditional churches. These new forms of community are also more fluid and inclusive. Unlike institutional churches, which often demand rigid commitment to specific beliefs or practices, the smaller communities sought by the chosen tend to be more open to diversity of thought and spiritual experience. This allows each individual to bring their own vision and wisdom to the table, enriching the group as a whole. In these environments, there is no need to fit into molds or follow a predetermined path. Each member is free to follow their own pace and develop their spirituality uniquely. For many chosen, these small communities offer a safe haven where they can explore new ways of connecting with the divine without the pressure to conform to traditional religious norms. They find in these communities a space of healing, where they can express their doubts, share their spiritual discoveries, and receive support in their journey. Here, there is no expectation of having all the answers or following a perfect path. What matters is the sincerity of the heart and each person's willingness to grow spiritually. At the same time, these smaller communities also help the chosen recognize that they are not alone on their journey. While the spiritual path is profoundly individual, the support of like-minded souls can be a source of strength and inspiration. In these communities, the chosen meet others who have also experienced disillusionment with large religious institutions and who, like them, are seeking something truer and more authentic. This mutual recognition creates a network of solidarity, where everyone feels seen and understood. The search for smaller and authentic communities also reflects the chosen's desire to live a spirituality that is more centered on human relationships. Instead of following a religious leader or adhering to a specific doctrine, these communities are built on sharing, mutual respect, and spiritual support. There are no rigid hierarchies or inflexible rules. What unites these souls is a common desire to grow spiritually and help each other along their journeys. Furthermore, many chosen ones feel that in smaller communities, spirituality can be lived in a more practical way, where the focus is on how faith can be applied to daily life. Rather than getting lost in abstract theological debates or complex rituals, the chosen prefer to explore how their beliefs and spiritual practices can bring more love, compassion, and wisdom into their lives and into the world around them. These smaller communities provide an ideal space for this type of exploration, where spirituality is lived simply and directly, without the distractions and complications often found in larger churches. Ultimately, the search for these authentic communities reflects the chosen's desire to find a deeper sense of belonging. For many, the experience of moving away from institutional churches can be isolating, but by finding other souls who share a similar spiritual vision, they discover they are not alone in their search. These smaller communities offer a spiritual home, where each person can be who they truly are without masks or pretense, and where genuine connection with the divine can be experienced in a transformative and authentic way. The call to personal spiritual awakening is a phenomenon that has resonated deeply among the chosen, leading them to reconsider their place in traditional religious institutions. This call is not something sudden or forced. It often arises as an inner whisper, a persistent feeling that there is something more to be explored, a deeper truth that needs to be lived. For the chosen, this awakening is a turning point, a moment when they realize that the religious structure they belong to no longer nourishes their soul in the way they need. Personal spiritual awakening is a journey that begins within the heart. It is not about rejecting or despising the religious traditions they were raised in, but rather about recognizing that to continue growing spiritually, it is necessary to follow a path that is more authentic and aligned with their own essence. The chosen begin to perceive that while the church provided an important foundation for their faith, it now limits their growth, imposing barriers between them and true connection with the divine. This realization is often accompanied by a sense of restlessness. The practices and rituals that once provided comfort and meaning now seem empty, mechanical. The constant repetition of dogma without genuine understanding or spiritual application begins to feel superficial. The chosen feel as if they are merely going through the motions, and that their search for God and truth can no longer be satisfied within the limits of the institution. At this point, many chosen ones begin to distance themselves from the church. They are not necessarily losing their faith but are discovering that the way they once lived it is no longer enough. There is an urgency to explore new ways of connecting with the sacred, to seek answers that go beyond what they were taught. The spiritual journey now becomes something profoundly personal, guided by intuition, spirit, and a thirst for truth. This awakening is often accompanied by a deep sense of solitude. When the chosen begin to question the religious structures that were once the foundation of their faith, they may feel isolated, misunderstood by those who still find meaning and security within these same structures. There is pain in leaving behind something that was once so familiar, but this pain is balanced by the freedom to follow a new direction, to discover a spirituality that genuinely resonates with their soul. The decision to leave the church is not a rejection of God but rather an affirmation that the relationship with the divine must be lived in a personal way, without intermediaries. The chosen understand that their faith cannot be confined to a building or a series of rules and rituals. They seek a direct connection with the sacred, without the need for mediation by authority figures or established dogmas. This search often leads to a more vibrant and dynamic spirituality, where the sacred is found in the small things of daily life, in interactions with others, and in moments of silence and reflection. In responding to the call for personal spiritual awakening, the chosen begin to redefine what it means to worship and connect with the divine. They realize that worship need not happen only in a temple or church and that God is not limited to a physical structure or specific practice. The divine presence can be felt anywhere, in nature, in the stillness of a quiet morning, in the words of a dear friend, or in the simple act of breathing and being present in the moment. This new form of spirituality is deeply personal and unique to each individual. There is no formula or preordained path to follow. Each chosen person discovers their own way of connecting with the divine. Some may find meaning in meditation, others in silent prayer, while others may turn to alternative forms of worship that allow them to express their faith more creatively and freely. What matters is that for the chosen, the spiritual journey becomes something deeply authentic, a direct expression of who they are and what they seek. This spiritual individuality also allows the chosen to feel freer to explore other traditions and philosophies that resonate with them. Without needing to rigidly adhere to a single doctrine or practice, they can integrate teachings from different sources that complement their spiritual journey. This may include wisdom from other religions, ancient spiritual practices, or even contemporary philosophies that promote growth and self-awareness. The goal is not to replace one tradition with another, but rather to create a spiritual practice that is personal and meaningful. However, the path of personal spiritual awakening is not easy. It requires courage to challenge established norms and to question beliefs that once seemed unquestionable. The chosen must be willing to face their own shadows, to deal with the discomfort of uncertainty, and to embrace the fact that their journey may not be understood by everyone. But it is precisely this courage that allows them to grow spiritually and reach a deeper understanding of themselves and the universe around them. Those who respond to the call for personal spiritual awakening are following a path that is both solitary and profoundly rewarding. They are leaving behind the structures that once defined their faith, but in doing so, they are creating space for a spirituality that is alive, dynamic, and infinitely more personal. They are finding God not in a building or a book but within themselves, in the depths of their soul. This awakening process is continuous. There is no final destination, no definitive conclusion. The spirituality of the chosen is in constant evolution, always expanding as they continue to explore new ways of connecting with the divine and the world around them. They have learned that true faith is not something fixed or unchanging but rather a process of continual discovery, growth, and spiritual renewal. The chosen who respond to this call are on a journey of profound transformation. They are leaving behind the limitations of institutionalized spirituality and embracing the freedom to follow their own path. This journey is not easy, but it is rich in meaning and purpose, and those who follow it are living a spirituality that is deeply authentic and in tune with their soul. The information age has brought with it a revolution in how people access and share knowledge. For the chosen, this moment has proven to be a unique opportunity to explore diverse spiritual traditions and global philosophies, enriching their own journeys of self-discovery and spiritual growth. The ease with which they can now access sacred texts, teachings from spiritual masters, and philosophical reflections from cultures worldwide has allowed them to build a personal spirituality that goes beyond the limits imposed by any traditional religious institution. Before the digital age, access to spiritual knowledge was often mediated by religious authorities who controlled which teachings were passed on to the community. The practices and doctrines of churches served as gatekeepers of knowledge, and believers depended on these institutions to guide them on their spiritual journeys. However, with the spread of information on the internet, the chosen have discovered that there is much more to explore beyond the boundaries of churches and established dogmas. Today, anyone with a device and internet connection can access spiritual texts from diverse cultures and traditions, practically without limits. Ancient books, once available only to a few scholars, are now accessible to all. The teachings of Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, Islam, and many other spiritual currents can be studied and incorporated into the chosen's personal practice. This vast range of universal wisdom has allowed them to build a faith that is inclusive and expansive, integrating aspects of various traditions that resonate with their personal experiences. For the chosen, this search for universal wisdom is not just an accumulation of information but a profound reconnection with universal spiritual truths that transcend any doctrine. As they delve into different philosophies and practices, they begin to notice patterns and common principles that repeat across cultures and ages. Concepts like unconditional love, compassion, humility, the search for truth, and service to others are recurring themes in almost all spiritual traditions, reinforcing the idea that something deeper and underlying connects all of humanity in its search for the divine. These teachings offer the chosen a new way to understand their own spiritual journey. Instead of limiting themselves to a specific set of beliefs and practices, they now have the freedom to explore what resonates with their soul without fear of being considered heretics or deviants. This allows them to develop a living, dynamic, and ever-evolving spirituality where the practices and teachings they adopt reflect their spiritual needs at each moment of their lives. The internet and social media have also played a crucial role in this spiritual revolution. Not only do they facilitate access to knowledge, but they also enable the creation of global communities of spiritual seekers who can share ideas, practices, and experiences. These platforms provide a space where the chosen ones can connect with others who share their worldview, regardless of geographical location or cultural context. These online communities have become true spiritual refuges, offering support, guidance, and encouragement to continue on their journeys. Social media further allows the chosen to follow spiritual masters, authors, and thinkers who share their knowledge in real time. Podcasts, videos, lectures, and texts made available by these figures serve as ongoing sources of inspiration, allowing individuals to integrate new insights into their daily lives. Moreover, direct interaction with these sources of wisdom, through comments, messages, or questions, creates a sense of closeness and intimacy that is often lacking in traditional religious institutions. These digital tools allow the chosen ones to experiment with a plurality of ideas without the need to adhere to a single line of thought or philosophy. Instead of feeling bound to dogma, they can make informed choices about what works best for their spiritual practice. This autonomy and control over their spiritual journey is essential for those who are awakening to their individuality and uniqueness within the cosmos. However, this vast array of information and possibilities can also be overwhelming. The abundance of options, teachings, and philosophies available online can lead to confusion or even spiritual paralysis, where the chosen feel lost amidst so many voices and currents of thought. It is at this point that spiritual intuition becomes a fundamental compass. The chosen learn to discern what is genuinely authentic and aligned with their spiritual purpose, setting aside what does not resonate with their journey. This ability to filter information and seek what most nourishes their soul is a sign of spiritual maturity, which is only achieved with time and practice. At the same time, there is a risk of isolating oneself in information bubbles or falling into false doctrines. This is why the chosen must always seek a critical and balanced approach, questioning what they find and reflecting on how these teachings apply to their practical lives. Openness to new wisdoms does not mean accepting everything indiscriminately, but rather integrating what truly contributes to their spiritual growth and the expansion of their consciousness. The information age has undoubtedly offered the chosen ones an unprecedented opportunity to expand their spiritual views and challenge the limits of what they were taught. By exploring a diversity of traditions and philosophies, they are creating a new spiritual paradigm that is inclusive, expansive, and deeply personal. This new form of spirituality is no longer dictated from the top down but built from the inside out, reflecting each individual's unique needs, experiences, and intuitions. The chosen ones are, therefore, in a privileged position to redefine what it means to be spiritual in the modern era. They are embracing the freedom to learn from the world, integrating ancient and new wisdoms, and creating spiritual practices as diverse as their own journeys. As they continue to explore, learn, and grow, they are also helping to shape a new vision of spirituality that is more inclusive, open, and connected to the global reality. The departure from the church often marks the beginning of a deep spiritual healing process. For the chosen ones, leaving formal religious structures can be a painful and, at the same time, liberating experience. For years, many of these individuals found meaning and direction within the church walls, participating in rituals and adhering to the dogmas they were taught. However, when they feel the call to follow a more personal path, the separation becomes necessary. This separation is not a rejection of spirituality or God, but rather a re-evaluation of their relationship with the divine. This healing process begins with the deconstruction of many of the beliefs and conditioning the chosen have carried throughout their religious journey. For years, they may have adopted certain ideas about what it means to be spiritual, the right way to worship, or how to connect with God. But upon leaving religious structures, they realize that these beliefs may have limited their true spiritual connection. It is a moment of deep self-questioning and introspection, where the chosen need to evaluate what genuinely resonates with their soul and what was merely a reflection of what they were taught. Spiritual healing in this sense involves unlearning to relearn. The chosen realize that the divine is not confined to a church or specific doctrine. They discover that God is present everywhere and in everything, in the silence of a morning, in the movement of trees, in the sound of the wind, or in the depths of their own hearts. This discovery is both simple and transformative, as it leads the chosen to realize that the connection with the sacred does not depend on intermediaries, rituals, or buildings, but on a genuine, sincere openness to feel the divine presence in every moment. This reconnection with the sacred can happen in various ways. For some, silence and solitude become powerful companions in this process. By distancing themselves from the distractions and demands of everyday life, they begin to hear more clearly their inner voice, the one that has always been there but was often drowned out by external voices. Practices like meditation, contemplation, or even simply walking in nature can provide deep moments of introspection and healing. In these moments, the chosen experience a new way of being with God, a way that requires no words, only presence. Others find this reconnection through art, music, poetry, or other forms of creative expression. These creative practices allow them to touch the deepest parts of their soul and express their spirituality in a way that transcends words. Creativity, like spirituality, is an expression of the divine, and when the chosen allow themselves to create without judgment or restrictions, they find a new way to connect with something greater than themselves. However, this healing process is not always linear or easy. Often, leaving the church is accompanied by feelings of loss, loneliness, or confusion. The chosen may feel they are leaving behind an important part of their identity, or they may fear that by abandoning conventional religious practices, they are somehow distancing themselves from God. These feelings are normal and part of the healing process, as deconstructing the old always involves some level of pain and uncertainty. But as the chosen deepen in this healing process, they realize that this journey is, in fact, a return home, a return to the divine essence that has always been within them. And as they reconnect with this essence, they find a peace and clarity that cannot be found anywhere external. The relationship with the divine becomes intimate, personal, and unique, and the need for external validation or formal rituals fades away. It is important to note that for many chosen, this healing process also involves forgiveness, both of themselves and of the religious institutions that may have caused pain or disappointment. When leaving the church, some may carry resentments or frustrations toward people or practices that felt oppressive or limiting. But true spiritual healing only occurs when these resentments are released, allowing the heart to open fully to divine love. Forgiveness thus becomes an essential part of the journey, as it frees the chosen from the weight of the past and allows them to move forward with lightness and freedom. At the end of this healing and reconnection process, the chosen emerge with a new vision of themselves and the world. They understand that their spirituality does not need to follow a predefined model, that their relationship with God is unique, and that the spiritual journey is one of constant discovery and growth. This new understanding brings a sense of peace, as the chosen no longer feel the need to conform or meet the expectations of others. They are free to follow their path, guided by their intuition and the deep connection they have with the divine. This healing process also prepares them to be guides and examples for others who may be facing the same journey. The experience of leaving the church and finding a new form of spirituality gives them a valuable perspective that can be shared with those who are still searching for their path. And as more chosen go through this process, a new form of collective spirituality begins to emerge, a spirituality that is not limited by doctrines or traditions but based on freedom, love, and truth. This process also involves a redefinition of what it means to be spiritually connected. For many chosen ones, awakening brings with it the understanding that spirituality is not something confined to specific moments or sacred places. Instead, they begin to perceive that spirituality is present in every moment of life, in the small daily interactions, in the way they treat people around them, in their relationship with nature, and even in their personal struggles and challenges. This broader view of spirituality is liberating, as it allows the chosen to see the divine in everything, not just within the walls of a church. However, this awakening also comes with challenges. As the chosen begin to follow their own spiritual path, they may encounter resistance from friends, family, or even their own religious community. Leaving the church can be seen as an act of rebellion or even betrayal, leading to feelings of isolation or rejection. But the chosen understand that, although this path may be lonely, it is necessary for their spiritual growth. And over time, as their connection with the divine deepens, these feelings of loneliness transform into a sense of inner peace and clarity. Additionally, spiritual awakening brings a new vision of life's purpose. The chosen begin to realize that their spiritual mission goes far beyond the limits of formal religion. They understand that their life is a divine expression, and their mission is to live according to their truth, contributing to the greater good in ways that are aligned with their essence. This sense of purpose is deeply fulfilling, as it gives the chosen the courage to continue their journey, even when facing adversity or challenges. In the end, the call to personal spiritual awakening is a divine gift. Although challenging and often uncomfortable, it opens doors to a connection with the divine that is authentic, deep, and transformative. The chosen who respond to this call begin to live a life more aligned with their spiritual essence, discovering that by following their own path, they not only find God but also find themselves. The information age has brought a new dimension to the chosen spiritual journey, opening doors to knowledge and traditions previously limited by geographic and cultural barriers. This flow of information, which is no longer restricted to a sacred book or a single source of religious authority, allows the chosen to explore diverse spiritual traditions and global philosophies, enriching their journey in profound and multifaceted ways. This expanded access to wisdom is one of the main reasons why many chosen ones begin to drift away from traditional churches. In the past, spiritual knowledge was often restricted to religious institutions, with churches, temples, and other places of worship serving as the keepers of this knowledge. Those seeking spiritual answers had to submit to interpretations of scriptures made by religious authorities, often accepting a limited view within their own tradition. However, with the explosion of the information age, the chosen now have the freedom to explore a vast range of traditions and spiritual perspectives. This freedom to explore universal knowledge has significantly influenced the movement away from traditional religious institutions. Many chosen ones, as they access these new sources of wisdom, discover a wealth of spiritual teachings that deeply resonate with their own experiences and intuitions. They begin to integrate practices and teachings from various traditions, from Buddhist meditation to Sufi mysticism, or even teachings from Stoic philosophy. This fusion of global wisdom creates a personalized and enriched spirituality that goes far beyond the borders of any specific religious tradition. In doing so, the chosen start to see that spiritual truth does not belong to any one religion or belief system but is dispersed throughout the world, available to those who are willing to seek with an open heart and receptive mind. The impact of the information age is also reflected in how the chosen ones share and learn from each other. With the advent of the internet and social media, the chosen are no longer isolated on their spiritual journeys. They can connect with other like-minded souls worldwide, exchanging ideas, practices, and experiences. This creates a global community of spiritual seekers where the exchange of wisdom and mutual support transcends physical and cultural boundaries. Many chosen find support and inspiration in online spiritual groups, forums, and social networks, where they can discuss their journeys without fear of judgment or misunderstanding. This exchange of ideas and spiritual practices also allows the chosen to challenge the beliefs and dogmas taught in their religious institutions. As they expose themselves to different perspectives, they begin to question teachings they once accepted without question. This questioning, although uncomfortable, is an essential part of the spiritual journey. For many, the church becomes a place of limitations, where questioning is discouraged and answers are pre-made. In contrast, exploring various spiritual traditions offers the freedom to question, experiment, and find answers that resonate more profoundly and truthfully with the soul of the chosen. The information age also provides a new perspective on spiritual practice. Often, traditional religious traditions prioritize the practice of formal and structured rituals, which may not resonate with all chosen ones. However, by exploring other traditions, the chosen may discover practices more aligned with their own spiritual essence. For example, some may connect deeply with meditation practice, while others may find solace and enlightenment in reading philosophical texts or practicing contemplative silence. The beauty of this freedom is that there is no right way to connect with the divine. Each chosen has the liberty to find what resonates best with their soul and purpose. Moreover, the information age makes it possible to demystify certain concepts that were previously considered unattainable or complex. Spiritual knowledge, often viewed as a privilege of the few, is now available to all who wish to learn. This democratizes access to spirituality and removes the barriers of exclusivity that often surrounded religious traditions. With this openness, the chosen can feel empowered to become their own spiritual guides, guided by their intuition and the wisdom they encounter on their journey. However, this freedom also comes with a sense of responsibility. With the vast amount of information available, it is essential for the chosen to develop spiritual discernment. Not all information circulating in the digital age is true or useful, and it is easy to get lost in a multitude of conflicting practices and teachings. Spiritual discernment becomes a vital skill, where the chosen learn to distinguish what is genuine and helpful for their journey from what may be a distraction or even misinformation. This discernment is cultivated through introspection, continuous spiritual practice, and connection with one's heart. Another interesting aspect of the information age is how it opens the door to integrating science and spirituality. For a long time, science and spirituality were seen as opposing fields, with science being considered the domain of reason and spirituality the domain of faith. However, many chosen are discovering that these two areas are not mutually exclusive. In fact, there is a profound interconnection between scientific advances and spiritual traditions. For example, discoveries in quantum physics have led many to reconsider the concept of spiritual interconnectedness and the relationship between consciousness and matter. This integration of science and spirituality offers a new vision of the universe, where reason and intuition can coexist harmoniously, providing a more comprehensive understanding of reality. Finally, the impact of the information age on the spiritual journey of the chosen is both a blessing and a challenge. It is a blessing because it offers access to a wealth of wisdom and practices that enrich the spiritual journey. It is a challenge because it requires discernment, courage, and the willingness to navigate a vast sea of information while always seeking inner truth. For many chosen ones, this new era represents an opportunity for spiritual growth and evolution that goes beyond the limitations of traditional religious institutions. The information age, with all its complexities and opportunities, is shaping the future of spirituality for the chosen. It allows them to break free from the shackles of dogma and institutions, creating space for a spirituality that is truly authentic, inclusive, and expansive. By exploring new traditions and integrating different forms of wisdom, the chosen are crafting a new way of relating to the divine, one that resonates deeply with the soul and the greater purpose of their existence. However, it is important to remember that leaving the church does not mean the chosen one must be entirely alone in their spiritual journey. While the process of healing and reconnecting with the sacred often happens in silence and solitude, the chosen one can also find support and encouragement from kindred souls who are on a similar journey. These connections don't need to be formal or organized. They can happen organically, whether through informal spiritual gatherings, study groups, or even online communities. The important thing is that the chosen one knows that, although their journey is unique, they are not alone. This new form of spiritual community can be incredibly empowering because it is based on authenticity and mutual support, rather than hierarchies or dogma. Instead of being guided by rigid rules or external expectations, these groups of chosen ones gather with a common goal of exploring and deepening their connection with the divine. They share their experiences, learn from each other, and offer support in times of challenge. Above all, they encourage one another to follow their own spiritual path without judgment or imposition. Leaving the church, therefore, is just the beginning of a new phase in the chosen one's spiritual journey. It is a brave step towards spiritual freedom and healing. As the chosen one distances themselves from structures that no longer serve their soul, they begin to discover a new form of spirituality, one that is alive, authentic, and deeply connected to the sacred. Over time, this new spirituality not only heals the wounds of the past but also opens doors to a more intimate and profound relationship with the divine. The search for a greater purpose is a powerful force that guides many chosen ones to leave traditional religious institutions. This inner calling goes beyond any formal structure, beyond dogmas and conventions. It is like a deep whisper from the soul, inviting the chosen to live their spiritual mission fully and authentically. The greater purpose that many chosen ones feel is something that cannot be confined within the walls of a church or the rules of an established doctrine. It transcends external expectations and points to an individual journey that is often challenging but profoundly transformative. This calling can arise at various points in a chosen one's life, but it often manifests after a long period of dissatisfaction with the religious environment. The chosen begin to realize that, despite their religious practices and faith, something fundamental is still missing. They feel there is a larger mission to fulfill, a deeper truth to live by. And this feeling of restlessness grows until they can no longer ignore it. This is the moment when the chosen one is challenged to step out of their comfort zone, break away from surrounding traditions, and follow their own spiritual path. Following this greater purpose requires extraordinary courage. It demands the ability to detach from the familiar and safe and to trust in the unknown. For many, this means leaving behind the community they know, the practices they were taught from childhood, and even the social validation that comes from these connections. Leaving the church may be seen by others as an act of rebellion or even a loss of faith, but for the chosen one, it is a movement toward their deepest truth. It is a choice born from a place of courage and faith, not doubt or rejection. This break from the church is not a rejection of spirituality or of God, but a response to a greater spiritual calling. Many chosen ones realize that, to live their soul's purpose, they must free themselves from structures that limit their spiritual growth. Religious traditions, while they served an important purpose in their lives, begin to feel inadequate for the spiritual expansion they are experiencing. The chosen one understands that the journey toward the greater purpose is an individual one, where they need to find their own answers and their own connection with the divine. This break, however, is not an easy process. The chosen one may go through moments of great confusion and uncertainty. They may wonder if they are making the right choice, if they are truly listening to the divine or simply being influenced by their own desires. But over time, this doubt gives way to an inner clarity. The chosen one begins to realize that following their greater purpose is not a choice they make with their mind, but rather with their heart. They feel a deep peace and conviction that they are on the right path, even if that path is unknown and full of challenges. The call to live one's soul purpose is often accompanied by a series of synchronicities and signs that confirm the chosen one's journey. They may encounter people, books, or teachings that resonate deeply with their inner truth. Doors that once seemed closed begin to open, and they feel a renewed energy and enthusiasm for life. This is a sign that they are aligned with their soul's purpose and that they are being guided by the divine every step of the way. It is important to remember that this greater purpose cannot be defined in a simple or linear way. For each chosen one, it manifests uniquely. Some may be called to lead social justice movements, others to heal and teach, and still others to create art or bring joy to the world in unexpected ways. What all these paths have in common is that they are deeply personal and rooted in a genuine desire to serve the greater good. The chosen one's purpose is not determined by external rules but by an inner alignment with their true essence and the divine will. As the chosen one follows their greater purpose, they begin to see that many of the limitations they previously experienced were, in fact, preparations for this journey. The difficulties, challenges, and frustrations, all of it shaped and prepared them to live this mission with wisdom and compassion. They come to understand that the trials they faced have strengthened and equipped them to fulfill their purpose. Thus, the chosen one can look back and see that each stage of their journey was essential to their growth and the fulfillment of their spiritual mission. This path, however, will not always be easy. The chosen one may feel isolated or misunderstood by others, especially those still bound to conventional religious traditions. They may face criticism or even rejection for following a different path. But despite these difficulties, the chosen knows they cannot go back. They feel an inner force pushing them forward, a conviction that they are on the right path, no matter what others may say. The most important thing on this journey is for the chosen to continue to trust themselves and their connection with the divine. They must continue to listen to their intuition and follow their truth, even when the path seems difficult or lonely. By doing so, they will discover they are being guided and supported at every step of the way. And over time, they will realize that this journey is not just about them. By living their greater purpose, the chosen one is playing an essential role in the spiritual awakening of humanity. They are helping to bring more light, love, and truth into the world. In answering this higher calling, the chosen one becomes a channel for divine energy, allowing their light to shine in a fuller and more authentic way. And in doing so, they inspire others to do the same. The chosen one's greater purpose is not only a personal mission but a contribution to the greater good of all. They are here to serve, to help elevate the collective consciousness, and to bring more love and compassion to the world. The path of the chosen one is often lonely and challenging but at the same time, deeply rewarding. When a chosen one decides to leave the church, they are not merely abandoning a religious institution but also embarking on a journey of self-discovery and direct connection with the divine. By doing so, they step away from structures that may have been comfortable or familiar but which, in some way, no longer resonate with their deepest spiritual truth. This break, though difficult, is a crucial step in spiritual evolution, as it allows the chosen one to live according to the authenticity of their soul. One of the main reasons why the chosen ones decide to leave the church is that they feel a deeper spiritual awakening, pushing them to seek a connection with God that transcends established rules and dogmas. This awakening is often accompanied by a strong desire for authenticity and truth. Rituals and practices that once brought comfort now seem empty and lifeless. The chosen one realizes that their spirituality can no longer be contained in a series of rituals and rules but requires something more fluid, more alive, and more connected to their heart and soul. This disconnection from traditional structures can be distressing at first. The chosen one may feel a sense of loss or even guilt for moving away from what they were always taught was the right path. Yet at the same time they feel an undeniable inner calling, an invitation to explore new forms of spirituality, question previously accepted beliefs, and seek a deeper, more authentic connection with the divine. This process of questioning is essential for spiritual growth, as it is only through questioning that the chosen one can discover their own truth. Leaving the church does not mean by any means abandoning faith. In fact, for many chosen ones, it is quite the opposite. By leaving the church, they feel more connected to God than ever. They realize that God is not confined to a building or a set of rules but is present everywhere. In the silence of nature, in the small daily interactions, in the love and compassion they share with others. This recognition that God is always present in all things and at all times is profoundly liberating for the chosen one. They understand that they no longer need intermediaries to connect with the divine because that connection already exists within them. This new understanding of God and spirituality often leads the chosen one on a journey of self-discovery. Without the distractions and limitations imposed by rituals and dogmas, they can dive deeper into themselves and explore aspects of their soul that were once hidden. They begin to see their life as an expression of spirituality, not merely a series of religious obligations. Every moment becomes an opportunity to grow spiritually, to learn, to love, and to connect with the divine in new and profound ways. This awakening process also brings a sense of peace and freedom. The chosen one no longer feels the need to fit into a mold or follow external expectations. They can live their spirituality authentically, in a way that resonates with their soul. And by doing so, they experience a spiritual freedom they may never have felt before. This freedom allows them to explore new forms of prayer, meditation, and connection with God without feeling restricted by the norms or expectations of the church. However, this freedom also brings responsibility. By leaving the church, the chosen one becomes responsible for their own spiritual journey. They can no longer lean on church structures or religious leaders to guide them. Instead, they must rely on their intuition, their connection with the divine, and their ability to discern what is right and true for them. This responsibility may be intimidating at first, but over time, the chosen one realizes that it is an essential part of their spiritual growth. By taking responsibility for their own journey, they become stronger, wiser, and more connected to their true essence. Additionally, leaving the church often involves redefining what spiritual community means. The chosen one may realize that even though they have distanced themselves from the church, they still need spiritual connections with others. However, these connections now take on a different form. Instead of large congregations, the chosen one may seek smaller, more intimate communities where they can share their spiritual journey in a more authentic and meaningful way. These communities may be made up of friends, family, or even people they meet online in groups that share similar interests and spiritual perspectives. These new forms of community allow the chosen one to connect with others in a truer way, free from the pressures and expectations that often exist in large religious institutions. In these communities, they can share their experiences, struggles, and spiritual victories and receive support and encouragement from those on similar journeys. This type of community is deeply fulfilling, as it allows the chosen one to continue growing spiritually while maintaining connections with others. By leaving the church, the chosen one also has the opportunity to redefine what it means to worship. Worship is no longer limited to going to a temple or participating in specific rituals. Instead, worship becomes something they do in every moment of their life. They worship God when they are silent, when they are in nature, when they are helping others, and when they are living in alignment with their spiritual truth. Every moment becomes an opportunity to express their love and devotion to God in a way that is unique and authentic to them. This process of redefining worship is deeply liberating. The chosen one realizes that spirituality does not need to be something separate from their daily life but can be integrated into everything they do. They no longer need to wait for a specific moment or ritual to connect with God. They can do it at any time and any place. And by doing so, they experience a sense of peace and joy from knowing they are living their life in alignment with their spiritual truth. Exploring the journey of the chosen one who steps away from the church makes it evident that one of the main reasons for this decision is the disconnect between organized religion's dogmas and the living spirituality that many chosen ones seek. The dogmas, rigid rules, and unchanging traditions that often guide religious institutions can feel stifling for those seeking a broader and more fluid spiritual experience. For many chosen ones, spirituality is not something that can be fitted into pre-established molds or rules set by previous generations. Instead, it is a personal, ever-evolving journey that adapts to each individual's experiences and inner growth. However, churches often promote a more inflexible approach, where the path to spirituality is strictly defined. This can include dogmas that demand unquestioning adherence, rituals that have become mechanical over time, and an expectation of conformity over individuality. This disparity between what is taught and what is experienced becomes a breaking point for many chosen ones. They feel their spirituality is being limited, that their connection with the divine is being restricted by traditions and norms that no longer resonate with their inner truth. This does not mean they reject the teachings of faith in their entirety, but that they feel a call to go beyond, to explore new forms of spiritual connection that transcend the boundaries of conventional religious structures. The conflict between dogma and living spirituality also manifests in how the chosen ones view their relationship with the divine. Many religious dogmas impose a hierarchical view of spirituality, where there is a clear separation between the divine and humanity, mediated by priests, pastors, or other religious figures. However, the chosen ones often feel a direct connection with the divine, without the need for intermediaries. For them, God is not distant or unreachable but present in every moment of their lives, accessible through their intuition and experience. This perception leads them to question the necessity of formal religious structures. If they can connect with the divine in a direct and intimate way, why do they need rules or dogmas to interfere with that relationship? This fundamental question is what often triggers their departure from the church, as the chosen ones realize their spirituality does not depend on an institution but on their personal connection with God. Another significant aspect is the idea that living spirituality is dynamic, constantly changing, and growing. For the chosen ones, spirituality is a continuous journey of discovery and evolution, where new experiences and insights shape their understanding of the divine and themselves. However, religious institutions tend to promote a static view of spirituality, where answers have already been given and beliefs are unchanging. This creates an internal conflict for the chosen ones, who feel the need to explore beyond established limits, challenge the beliefs they have been taught, and seek their own answers to life's great spiritual questions. This desire to question and explore is often discouraged in churches, where conformity is frequently valued over personal exploration. However, for the chosen one, this search is essential. They cannot simply accept what they have been told without first exploring, reflecting, and possibly reevaluating those beliefs. This questioning process can be uncomfortable, both for the chosen one and those around them, as it challenges the status quo and traditional religious expectations. The chosen ones do not reject faith but rather the idea that spirituality can be fully understood or controlled by fixed rules. They recognize that true spirituality is much vaster and deeper than any dogma can capture. For them, the spiritual journey is unique to each individual and cannot be defined by a set of rules that apply to everyone uniformly. Each soul has its journey, challenges, and lessons to learn, and this is what makes spirituality so rich and complex. This recognition of the individuality of the spiritual journey is often what leads the chosen ones to step away from formal religious structures. They realize that these structures, while they may have been helpful at one point in their journeys, no longer serve the purpose of spiritual growth they seek. Instead of feeling limited by dogmas and rules, they choose to follow their intuition, trust their connection with the divine, and allow their spirituality to evolve authentically and naturally. However, this departure is not a rejection of God or faith. On the contrary, it is an affirmation of their direct connection with the divine. It is a recognition that their spirituality is something that should be lived authentically, free from the limitations imposed by external structures. They recognize that the divine cannot be contained in dogmas or rituals but is present in every moment of their lives, in all their experiences, and in every interaction they have with the world around them. The rejection of materialism and the encounter with the sacred is one of the central points in the journey of many chosen ones who decide to distance themselves from churches. In today's world, many religious institutions have strayed from their original focus on spirituality, becoming increasingly involved in material concerns. Materialism, whether in the form of grand buildings, accumulated wealth, or sermons emphasizing financial prosperity over a connection with the divine, often takes center stage in many churches. For the chosen, this emphasis shifts the focus away from true spirituality and creates a deep sense of disconnection. By their very nature, the chosen seek something beyond what can be measured in material terms. They are on a journey to find the sacred, the divine in its purest form, and this quest requires stepping away from the distractions and superficialities that materialism brings. When the church, which should be a spiritual refuge, becomes a place where money and material wealth are glorified, the chosen feel betrayed and alienated. This misdirection is especially evident in the prosperity gospel, where material wealth is often presented as a sign of divine blessing. The message is that those who follow God properly will be rewarded with financial success, while those facing financial struggles may lack faith. For the chosen, this perspective is limiting and runs contrary to what they understand as the true purpose of spirituality. For the chosen, a true encounter with the sacred does not involve a pursuit of wealth or status. On the contrary, they often recognize that they must let go of these worldly ambitions to access a higher form of spiritual connection. This understanding leads them to reject teachings that place materialism at the center, for they know that the path to the divine is a path of detachment and simplicity. By detaching from worldly concerns and seeking a more authentic spiritual life, the chosen find true spiritual wealth. The gap between the spiritual search of the chosen and the materialism in many churches is also underscored by the contrast between the messages of humility and simplicity often found in sacred texts and the material realities of religious institutions. When the chosen see religious leaders living in opulence while many of their followers struggle financially, this disparity becomes even more apparent. For those deeply attuned to their spiritual calling, this situation appears as a clear departure from the true purpose of religion. The chosen seek a spirituality that is lived, felt, and experienced in its purest essence. They know that true connection with the divine cannot be bought or sold. Materialism, with its appeal to accumulation and greed, distracts from what is essential, the direct and intimate connection with God. And it is in this recognition that many choose to move away from churches that have become overly materialistic. This decision to reject materialism is not merely a departure from the churches but also an affirmation of what truly matters to the chosen. They recognize that the divine is not found in material riches but in silent, profound experiences of inner connection. They understand that true spiritual growth cannot be measured in terms of money or possessions but in the depth of their relationship with God, the development of their soul, and how they live their lives according to spiritual principles. For the chosen, true wealth lies in the ability to find the sacred in all aspects of life. It is found in simplicity, silence, the practice of compassion, and love expressed in ways that cannot be quantified in material terms. They view the material world as temporary and transient, while spirituality is eternal and unchanging. This perspective guides them away from churches that promote materialism and toward a more authentic and pure form of connection with the sacred. By distancing themselves from materialism, the chosen make space for true spirituality to flourish in their lives. They understand that by removing the focus from possessions and wealth, they can more fully concentrate on the development of their souls and their connection with the divine. They recognize that the sacred cannot be found in external things but only within themselves, in their hearts and minds, and in their intimate relationship with the divine. This journey to find the sacred, away from materialism, is a process of purification. By rejecting the distractions of the material world, the chosen come ever closer to the essence of what it means to be both human and divine. They experience a form of freedom that can only be found in detachment. And it is in this detachment that they finally find true peace and a profound connection with the divine that transcends any material possession or promise of worldly prosperity. The power of spiritual individualism is one of the most significant forces guiding the chosen in their journey away from traditional religious structures. While many are drawn to the security and conformity offered by established religious communities, the chosen understand that their spiritual journey is unique and personalized. They feel, with growing clarity, that the path to the divine cannot be walked the same way by everyone. Each soul has its rhythm, its own language with the sacred, and its own challenges and discoveries. For the chosen, spiritual individualism is not a rejection of community or connection with others. On the contrary, it is an affirmation that the most authentic journey is the one lived according to each person's inner truth. This means that the rigid rules and established dogmas of religious institutions often do not resonate with their own understanding of the divine. What may work for many in a collective and structured context is often insufficient or even becomes an obstacle for those searching for something deeper and more personal. The power of spiritual individualism begins to manifest when the chosen realize that their spiritual answers do not necessarily align with what is taught in churches or other religious institutions. They start to question whether the rituals, practices, and even beliefs they were taught truly bring them closer to the divine. And in asking these questions, they often discover that true spirituality cannot be standardized or controlled by an organization. It is fluid, evolving, and intimately tied to each person's individual experience. Spiritual individualism also involves a significant level of personal responsibility. In stepping away from established norms and traditions, the chosen realize they can no longer rely on external authorities to define their beliefs or practices. They are called to trust their intuition, listen to their souls, and establish a direct relationship with the divine. This requires courage, as it means leaving behind the comfort of ready-made answers and entering the often uncertain territory of self-discovery. But it is in this territory that the chosen begin to flourish spiritually. By following their intuition and listening to the voice of their soul, they discover a freedom that is often impossible within traditional religious structures. They free themselves from the need to follow paths set by others and begin to explore the vast field of spiritual possibilities that opens before them. And in doing so, they find a form of spirituality that is truly their own. This spiritual individualism should not be confused with selfishness or isolation. In fact, it is a journey that frequently leads to a deeper sense of connection, not only with the divine but also with nature, humanity, and life in its entirety. By recognizing their unique spiritual path, the chosen also begin to see the uniqueness in every living being around them. They learn to respect the individual journeys of others, acknowledging that the path to the divine is vast and multifaceted and that each soul must find its way. The chosen also realize that their quest for spiritual individualism does not necessarily separate them from others but rather leads them to seek more authentic and deeper connections. They may distance themselves from traditional religious communities, but that does not mean they are alone. On the contrary, they often connect with other souls on similar journeys, forming smaller, more intimate communities based on sharing genuine spiritual experiences rather than dogmas or rules. These smaller communities, which emerge from an individualized spiritual search, are often more flexible and open to spiritual diversity. They allow the chosen ones to share their experiences and wisdom without the need for conformity or adherence to a single universal truth. Each member brings their own vision of the divine, and these perspectives are respected and valued. This stands in contrast to what many experience in churches, where divergent beliefs or practices are often seen as a threat to unity. Spiritual individualism also means that the chosen ones can explore a wide range of spiritual practices that resonate with their souls. They do not feel restricted by traditions or expectations. If a particular practice or belief does not resonate with them, they feel free to pursue something different, something that brings them closer to what is true for them. This can include meditation, prayer, connection with nature, studies of ancient wisdom, or even the creation of new practices unique to their journey. The freedom to follow their spiritual path also brings a profound joy. The chosen ones realize they no longer need to conform to systems that do not reflect their inner truth. They are free to create a spiritual life that is authentic, vibrant, and alive. They are not bound by rules that limit their growth or spiritual expression. Instead, they are guided by an inner compass that leads them toward a form of spirituality that is infinitely expansive and deeply connected to the divine. This freedom can also be daunting at first. For many, leaving behind the certainties offered by religious institutions is a leap into the unknown. But as the chosen ones delve deeper into their spiritual individualism, they discover that the divine has always been present, not in external structures but within themselves. They realize that by trusting themselves and their direct connection with the divine, they can navigate their spiritual journey with confidence and faith. Spiritual individualism is ultimately an expression of profound trust in the divine and in oneself. It is the belief that each soul possesses within it everything it needs to find its way back to God. This trust allows the chosen to flourish beyond the limitations of religious institutions, finding a spirituality that is alive, authentic, and truly transformative. Many chosen ones, upon leaving traditional churches, find that their search for authentic spirituality leads them to seek smaller, more intimate communities. These communities are often not found in large religious institutions, where rigid hierarchies and established dogmas hinder the creation of genuine spiritual connections. Instead, these new forms of communion arise from a deep need to share the spiritual journey with those equally committed to seeking the sacred in a more personal and authentic way. These smaller communities are grounded in the sharing of spiritual experiences and wisdom, rather than in the imposition of beliefs. They are spaces where the chosen feel free to explore their connection with the divine without fear of judgment or pressure to conform to dogma. It is an environment of mutual respect, where each individual is encouraged to follow their own spiritual path while sharing their journey with others seeking something similar. One of the models many chosen seek to recreate is that of the early Christians' communal fellowship. These early followers of Jesus formed communities based on mutual support, simplicity, and true spiritual connection. They gathered in small groups, not in grand temples, and shared their resources and lives in a spirit of love and solidarity. For today's chosen, this model offers a vision of how spiritual life can be lived in community without the hierarchies and rigidity of modern institutions. These new spiritual communities often reject the excessive focus on materialism and power structures that have dominated many churches. Instead, they focus on spiritual growth, connection with the divine, and building a life based on profound spiritual principles. Simplicity and authenticity are the pillars of these communities, where the emphasis is on real spiritual experience rather than appearances or formalities. The chosen who move away from large churches also seek communities where they can feel truly seen and heard. In large religious institutions, there is often a sense of anonymity, where individuals get lost in the crowd. The spiritual needs of each person are rarely met, and relationships are often superficial, based on formal rituals rather than deep personal connection. In contrast, smaller communities offer an environment where members can know each other intimately and authentically, creating deep spiritual bonds. For many chosen ones, these smaller communities provide a safe space to explore new forms of spirituality. They can experiment with different spiritual practices, share their own experiences, and learn from each other in ways that would not be possible in traditional churches. By letting go of rigid rules and dogma, these communities allow members to follow their spiritual intuition and find what truly resonates with their souls. Online communities also play an important role in this movement. With the advent of the internet and social media, the chosen ones have the opportunity to connect with people worldwide who are on similar spiritual journeys. They can share experiences, learn from different spiritual traditions, and find support in times of doubt or difficulty. These virtual communities offer a new form of spiritual connection that transcends geographical limitations and allows the chosen to find kindred souls, no matter where they are. These new forms of community are not based on a rigid or hierarchical structure but on sharing and mutual support. They offer a space where the chosen can be who they truly are, without the pressure to conform to a norm or tradition. It is a form of communion that values the individuality and authenticity of each member while creating a deep sense of connection and belonging. However, forming or finding these smaller communities is not always easy. Many chosen ones go through a period of loneliness and isolation before finding others who share their spiritual vision. This period of solitude can be challenging, but it is also an essential part of the spiritual awakening process. It is in silence and introspection that many chosen ones discover who they truly are and what they truly seek on their spiritual journey. As the chosen delve deeper into their search, they realize that authentic connections need not be numerous but meaningful. They learn to value the quality of spiritual relationships over the quantity of people they connect with. And by joining smaller, more authentic communities, they find a sense of belonging that is deeply satisfying and spiritually enriching. These smaller communities are also characterized by flexibility often absent in large churches. They are not bound by specific traditions or rituals, and members are free to explore new forms of spirituality as their journeys evolve. This allows these communities to grow and change alongside the individuals who are part of them, creating a dynamic and vibrant environment where spirituality is constantly explored and deepened. Additionally, these communities offer a space where the chosen can share experiences and support each other practically and spiritually. They can help each other during difficult times, celebrate moments of joy and growth, and offer advice and guidance. It is a form of community that goes beyond mere collective worship and extends into daily life, creating a support network that helps the chosen live their spirituality more fully and integrally. Ultimately, the search for smaller, authentic communities is an important part of the journey of the chosen. They recognize that their spirituality cannot be fully lived within the rigid structures of large religious institutions, and they seek ways to connect with other like-minded souls in search of something deeper. And by finding these communities, the chosen discover that true spiritual communion is not based on dogmas or rituals but on the genuine sharing of spiritual experiences and mutual support along the journey. Many chosen ones respond to an inner calling, a deep spiritual awakening that leads them to question the structures that once seemed to be the only way to connect with the divine. This calling is more than just a doubt or restlessness. It is a true internal transformation, a revelation that authentic spirituality cannot be limited by institutions, rituals, or dogmas. As this awakening occurs, the chosen ones begin to realize that traditional forms of worship and spiritual connection have often become automated, devoid of life and deep meaning. This awakening does not happen all at once. It often begins as a whisper, a sense that something is missing, a disconnect from the outward forms of religion that once seemed satisfying. Over time, this whisper becomes an undeniable call, a need to explore new forms of spirituality that resonate more deeply with the soul. For many, this process involves stepping away from religious traditions that no longer serve their journey and moving toward a freer, more personal expression of faith. For the chosen, this spiritual journey is not something that can be entirely defined by others. It demands deep introspection, a willingness to look inward and confront the most profound truths about who they are and what they genuinely believe. This process of spiritual awakening often involves letting go of practices that have become mechanical and lifeless, and instead embracing a spirituality that is alive, fluid, and constantly evolving. Those who are spiritually awakening often feel a disconnection from the rituals and dogmas of the church. They realize that simply following rules and traditions, no matter how well-intentioned, does not necessarily lead to a true connection with the divine. Instead, spiritual awakening involves a re-evaluation of spiritual practices and an openness to new forms of worship and connection. This re-evaluation can be intimidating, as it often means breaking away from what is familiar and comfortable. Yet, for the chosen, it is a necessity, an urge that cannot be ignored. This inner call frequently leads the chosen to seek a more authentic, personalized spirituality. They begin to question whether they truly need a church, a pastor, or a congregation to connect with God. Many find that their relationship with the divine is more direct, more intimate when they step away from the formalities of religious institutions and embrace a spirituality that is wholly their own. This does not necessarily mean rejecting faith or the concept of spiritual community, but rather seeking something that resonates deeply with their soul and makes them feel spiritually alive. These moments of spiritual awakening are profoundly transformative. They require courage, as they often mean leaving behind religious communities that have been part of the chosen's life for many years, sometimes since childhood. But this courage is rewarded with a sense of spiritual freedom, a feeling that the journey is only beginning and that there is much more to explore and discover. The chosen spiritual path becomes less about following rules and more about following an inner truth, that inner voice that guides them toward a deeper, more authentic relationship with the divine. Moreover, this spiritual awakening often leads to a redefinition of what it means to worship and connect with the divine. For many chosen ones, worship is no longer something that takes place in a building or during a formal religious service. It becomes something that can be experienced at any moment in any place. Spiritual practice becomes more fluid, more integrated into daily life. It can be found in the silence of a walk in nature, in the quiet contemplation of a sunset, or in moments of deep meditation and personal prayer. As the chosen awakens to this new spiritual reality, they discover that the divine is not confined to an altar or a church structure. God is present everywhere and in everything. This realization brings profound freedom, a sense that spirituality is not something one does at specific times or places but something that permeates all of existence. The chosen begins to live their spirituality in a more integrated way, seeing the divine presence in every aspect of their life. Another important aspect of this spiritual awakening is the recognition that the spiritual journey is deeply personal. The chosen ones realize there is no single path to the divine and that each person has their journey, with unique lessons and challenges. This understanding brings an acceptance that there is no right way to worship or connect with God. Instead, there is an openness to explore different traditions and spiritual practices, to learn from other cultures and wisdoms, and to follow the inner intuition that guides the chosen toward their true spiritual purpose. For many, this awakening is accompanied by a sense of calling, a deep feeling that they are destined for something greater, something that cannot be confined by the limitations of traditional religious institutions. This calling leads them to explore new ways of living their spirituality and to seek ways to serve the world that align with their soul's purpose. They begin to realize that their role as the chosen is to live their truth courageously, even if it means leaving behind the traditional structures that once guided them. This spiritual awakening is, ultimately, a reconnection with what is true and authentic. It is a call to live according to one's soul, to follow the path that has been destined for them from the beginning. For the chosen, this journey is not easy, but it is profoundly fulfilling. They know they are being guided by a greater force, and this trust gives them the courage to continue on their journey, even when the path seems uncertain. As the chosen move through this process of spiritual awakening, they frequently encounter the disconnect between religious dogmas and a living spirituality. The rigid rules and rituals imposed by churches can often become barriers to the more fluid and expansive spiritual experience that the chosen begin to seek. The desire for a deeper connection with the divine, which transcends form, leads them to question the usefulness of structures that seem to them to stifle the spirit rather than free it. Religious dogmas, with their fixed and unquestionable definitions, often impose limits on spiritual development. They dictate what is right or wrong, create barriers between the sacred and the profane, and in many cases, suppress the natural curiosity and desire to explore broader truths. For the chosen, this creates a tension, as they are guided by a deeper intuition that often challenges these pre-established boundaries. Spiritual awakening brings with it a series of questions, one of which is, why would God need so many rules to be understood and loved? For the chosen, the answers provided by religious institutions often seem limited or even disconnected from the true divine essence. The chosen realizes that their spirituality cannot be confined to a fixed set of beliefs and that their search for truth will take them beyond the dogmatic limits they once accepted unquestioningly. It is important to recognize that this disconnection between dogmas and spirituality does not arise from a disregard for what is sacred but from a burning desire for something more authentic and life-giving. The chosen feels within them that the spirit cannot be controlled by human rules and that the divine cannot be confined to predefined formulas. There is a hunger for spiritual experiences that are real, lived, felt, and experienced here and now, in a deep and personal way. This need for a living spirituality causes many chosen to question the traditions they were taught to follow blindly. They begin to see that the spirit is not something that can be bottled up or packaged in doctrines. The spirit is dynamic, in constant motion, and any attempt to restrict or manipulate it only diminishes its vitality. Therefore, the chosen search leads them to question the purpose and validity of many rituals they performed out of habit, without feeling an authentic connection with the divine. Throughout this journey of questioning, the chosen often discover that the path of the spirit is far more individual than they were led to believe. They begin to understand that each soul has a unique path to follow, and there is no universal way to connect with God. What works for one person may not work for another, and this profound truth challenges the standardized models of religious institutions. The chosen begin to follow their own spiritual intuition, guided by an inner voice calling them toward a deeper and more genuine connection. This voice often leads them to explore other spiritual traditions and to seek wisdom beyond the doctrines in which they were raised. They may study Eastern philosophies, indigenous practices, or other forms of spirituality that expand their understanding of the divine. This movement beyond closed doctrines is not an abandonment of faith, but an expansion of it, a quest for something that resonates more deeply with the soul's essence. For many of the chosen, this spiritual expansion can be a painful process. Leaving behind beliefs long held, especially those taught by loved and respected figures, can create both internal and external conflicts. However, this is a necessary step in spiritual growth. The chosen learn that to truly know the divine, they must be willing to challenge the truths they were given and instead seek their own truths, those discovered through their direct connection with spirit. As the chosen continue on their journey, they free themselves from the limiting dogmas. They begin to see that true spirituality cannot be found in fixed formulas or rituals, but rather in a living and dynamic connection with the divine. They discover that spirit is something that flows, expands, and defies the rigid definitions that dogmas attempt to impose. The living spirituality that the chosen seek is one that connects them directly with the source of the divine, in a way that transcends human and institutional limitations. This quest for a freer, more expansive spirituality does not mean that the chosen completely reject the value of religious traditions. For many, there is a profound reverence for the wisdom that can be found in traditions, but this reverence is coupled with careful discernment. The chosen learn to separate what is truly useful for their spiritual journey from what is merely a lifeless repetition of rituals and beliefs that no longer resonate with their soul. In the end, stepping away from rigid dogmas and fixed rules is not a rejection of spirituality, but rather a move toward a form of connection with the divine that is more authentic, alive, and true. The chosen find freedom in following their own spiritual intuition, guided by the inner wisdom that leads them to a deeper relationship with the divine. They understand that spirituality is a personal journey and that the answers they seek cannot be found in predefined formulas or rules but in their own direct and intimate experience of the Spirit. By distancing themselves from religious dogmas and rigid rules that limit living spirituality, many of the chosen also begin to disconnect from another major aspect of churches: materialism. In many congregations, an exaggerated focus on material matters creates an environment that conflicts with the spiritual essence the chosen so cherish. For them, spirituality should transcend the material world, and an excessive attachment to wealth and possessions weakens life's sacred purpose. When they observe that many churches seem more interested in accumulating wealth, building large temples, and preaching financial prosperity, the chosen begin to feel a deep disconnection. There is an inversion of values where the sacred, which should be the main focus, is relegated to second place in favor of material gains. For the chosen, who are already on a journey of detachment and spiritual truth-seeking, this emphasis on materialism creates a barrier that makes it difficult to feel the true presence of the divine in these spaces. Materialism manifests in various ways within religious institutions. In some churches, it is evident in wealth-centered sermons where spiritual leaders promise material blessings in exchange for financial contributions. In others, it can be seen in opulent structures, relentless fundraising efforts, or even in the lavish lifestyles of the leaders, who appear to live in greater abundance than the congregation members. This disconnection between spiritual teachings and the focus on wealth accumulation creates unease for the chosen, who seek something more authentic and detached. For the chosen, true wealth lies in spiritual growth, connection with the divine, and the practice of living in harmony with nature and others. The materialism of churches, often preaching financial prosperity as a synonym for spiritual blessings, seems to corrupt this sacred ideal. The chosen realize that spirituality cannot be measured by the accumulation of goods or financial success, but rather by the purity of intention and the depth of spiritual connection. There is, of course, recognition that living in the material world requires resources, and churches need them to continue their activities. However, when resource-seeking becomes the primary focus, at the expense of the true spiritual mission, the chosen feel that the church has lost its essence. They begin to wonder, where is the spirit of humility, service, and charity that should guide our actions? How can we speak in the name of the divine while being more concerned with material possessions than the soul? This reflection leads many chosen ones to distance themselves from institutions that prioritize materialism. They begin to seek a connection with the sacred that transcends the physical world. By rejecting materialism, they are not rejecting the idea of prosperity but are instead redefining what it means to be truly prosperous. For them, spiritual prosperity, inner peace, a deep connection with the divine and the well-being of the soul, is far more valuable than any form of material wealth the world may offer. The chosen begin to understand that their spiritual journey demands a level of detachment from the material world that many do not comprehend. By freeing themselves from the need to accumulate possessions, they find a way of living that is lighter, more connected to the spirit, and closer to what truly matters. They realize that true wealth is not in what they can possess but in what they can spiritually experience. This material detachment is seen as a form of freedom. The chosen begin to recognize that, by relying less on the material world, they become freer to follow their true spiritual mission. They are no longer bound by the need to earn more, accumulate more, or compete for financial status. Instead, they feel called to follow a path of simplicity, where possessions are seen as tools, not as ends in themselves. The encounter with the sacred, then, happens in a purer and more direct way. Without the weight of materialism, the chosen open themselves up to deeper spiritual experiences. They realize that the divine can be found in moments of simplicity, in nature, in the quiet of meditation, or in acts of service to others. By freeing themselves from the pressure to follow conventional paths of financial success, they find a form of prosperity that is more aligned with their soul and greater purpose. This quest for a more authentic spiritual connection, free from materialism, often leads the chosen to rediscover ancient spiritual practices that emphasize detachment and humility. They may explore philosophies that teach living with less, like Stoicism, Buddhism, or even the Christian teachings of simplicity and service. By incorporating these principles into their lives, the chosen begin to experience a form of wealth that is more lasting and satisfying than any material good. Ultimately, stepping away from churches that emphasize materialism is a step toward a simpler life, focused more on what truly matters spiritually. The chosen understand that by letting go of the obsession with material possessions, they open space for a deeper connection with the divine. They recognize that true prosperity comes from within and that by cultivating an authentic spiritual life, they are amassing the only wealth that truly matters, that of the spirit. The power of spiritual individualism is a profound force that moves many chosen ones to follow their own paths outside traditional religious structures. For them, spirituality is a deeply personal journey, and following the dictates of an organized institution can often feel limiting. Spirituality is not a formula that can be identically replicated for everyone. Rather, it is something that grows and evolves according to one's own experiences, self-knowledge, and inner quest. This perception leads many chosen to explore their own path, away from the expectations imposed by a religious community. Spiritual individualism is not an act of rebellion or a rejection of traditions but rather a manifestation of each soul's authenticity in its quest for a direct connection with the divine. The chosen understand that, to find this connection, they need to free themselves from structures that often condition them to follow a uniform path dictated by dogmas and rules. They realize that their journey is unique and cannot be compared or standardized. Each individual, with their experiences, traumas, lessons, and revelations, has a personal route to connect with the sacred, and this path cannot be controlled by others. For many, this spiritual individualism can seem like a form of solitude, but the chosen learn to see solitude as an opportunity for introspection and self-discovery. Away from social and religious pressures, they find a space of silence where they can hear their own soul and feel the divine presence more clearly and purely. This space is where a fluid spirituality develops, one that is not static or dependent on rituals but alive and dynamic, able to adapt to internal changes in life's demands. In following the path of spiritual individualism, the chosen also embrace the freedom that comes with it. They are no longer bound by the expectations of a religious community that demands conformity and obedience. They are free from the burden of trying to fit into molds that do not resonate with their true essence. Instead, they are guided by their intuition, which becomes their spiritual compass. Intuition, a direct connection to the divine, guides their decisions, practices, and moments of communion with the sacred. This path, however, is not easy. Spiritual individualism demands a great deal of courage. By stepping away from established traditions and norms, the chosen often face criticism, misunderstandings, and even rejection from those who believe that the only valid form of spirituality is that practiced in a group under the guidance of a religious authority. Yet, the chosen who choose this path are willing to deal with these challenges because they understand that true spiritual freedom can only be achieved by following their own heart, not the expectations of others. The freedom to follow their own spiritual intuition does not necessarily mean a complete break from all traditions. On the contrary, many of the chosen still feel connected to certain elements of their spiritual heritage, but they do so in a conscious and personalized way. They may, for instance, keep prayer or meditation practices learned in a church but adapt them to their new understanding of spirituality. They do not reject what they have been taught but instead choose what makes sense in their current journey, discarding what no longer resonates with their inner truth. Another important aspect of spiritual individualism is that it allows for a more integrative approach to spirituality. Rather than limiting themselves to a single religious tradition, many chosen seek knowledge from various sources. They become spiritual explorers, studying different philosophies, religions, and spiritual practices, and extracting wisdom from all of them. This openness to universal knowledge allows them to build a spirituality that is not only inclusive but also expansive, enabling a deeper connection with the divine. In this journey of questioning, the chosen often discover that the path of the Spirit is much more individual than they were led to believe. They begin to understand that each soul has a unique path to follow, and that there is no universal way to connect with God. What works for one person may not work for another, and this profound truth challenges the standardized models of religious institutions. The chosen start to follow their own spiritual intuition, guided by an inner voice calling them toward a deeper, truer connection. This voice often leads them to explore other spiritual traditions and seek wisdom beyond the doctrines in which they were raised. They may study Eastern philosophies, indigenous practices, or other forms of spirituality that expand their understanding of the divine. This movement beyond closed dogmas is not an abandonment of faith, but an expansion of it. It is a search for something that resonates more deeply with the essence of the soul. For many of the chosen, this spiritual expansion can be a painful process. Leaving behind beliefs long held, especially those taught by loved and respected figures, can create internal and external conflicts. However, this is a necessary step in spiritual growth. The chosen learn that to truly know the divine, they must be willing to challenge the truths they were given and instead seek their own truths, those discovered through their direct connection with Spirit. As the chosen continue on their journey, they free themselves from the limiting dogmas. They begin to see that true spirituality cannot be found in fixed formulas or rituals, but rather in a living and dynamic connection with the divine. They discover that the Spirit is something that flows, expands, and defies the rigid definitions that dogmas try to impose. The living spirituality that the chosen seek is one that connects them directly to the source of the divine, transcending human and institutional limitations. This search for a freer, more expansive spirituality does not mean that the chosen reject the value of religious traditions entirely. For many, there is a profound reverence for the wisdom within traditions, but this reverence is coupled with careful discernment. The chosen learn to separate what is truly useful for their spiritual journey from what has become a lifeless repetition of rituals and beliefs that no longer resonate with their soul. Ultimately, stepping away from rigid dogmas and fixed rules is not a rejection of spirituality but a move toward a form of connection with the divine that is more authentic, alive, and true. The chosen find freedom in following their own spiritual intuition, guided by inner wisdom that leads them to a deeper relationship with the divine. They understand that spirituality is a personal journey, and that the answers they seek cannot be found in predefined formulas or rules, but in their own direct and intimate experience of the Spirit. By distancing themselves from religious dogmas and rigid rules that limit living spirituality, many of the chosen also begin to disconnect from another important facet of churches: materialism. In many congregations, an exaggerated focus on material matters creates an environment that conflicts with the spiritual essence the chosen cherish. For them, spirituality should be above the material world, and an excessive attachment to wealth and possessions weakens life's sacred purpose. When observing that many churches seem more interested in accumulating wealth, building large temples, and preaching financial prosperity, the chosen begin to feel a deep disconnection. There is an inversion of values where the sacred, which should be the main focus, is relegated to second place in favor of material gains. For the chosen, who are already on a journey of detachment and a search for spiritual truth, this emphasis on materialism creates a barrier that makes it difficult to feel the true presence of the divine in these spaces. Materialism manifests in various ways within religious institutions. In some churches, it is evident in wealth-centered sermons where spiritual leaders promise material blessings in exchange for financial contributions. In others, it can be seen in opulent structures, relentless fundraising efforts, or even in the lavish lifestyles of the leaders, who appear to live in greater abundance than the congregation members. This disconnection between spiritual teachings and the focus on wealth accumulation causes unease for the chosen, who seek something more authentic and detached. For the chosen, true wealth lies in spiritual growth, connection with the divine, and the practice of living in harmony with nature and others. The materialism of churches, often preaching financial prosperity as a synonym for spiritual blessings, seems to corrupt this sacred ideal. The chosen realize that spirituality cannot be measured by the accumulation of goods or financial success, but by the purity of intention and the depth of spiritual connection. There is, of course, recognition that living in the material world requires resources, and churches need them to continue their activities. However, when the pursuit of resources becomes the primary focus, at the expense of the true spiritual mission, the chosen feel that the church has lost its essence. They begin to wonder, where is the spirit of humility, service, and charity that should guide our actions? How can we speak in the name of the divine while being more concerned with material possessions than with the soul? This reflection leads many chosen to distance themselves from institutions that prioritize materialism. They begin to seek a connection with the sacred that transcends the physical world. By rejecting materialism, they are not rejecting the idea of prosperity, but redefining what it means to be truly prosperous. For them, spiritual prosperity, inner peace, a deep connection with the divine and the well-being of the soul, is far more valuable than any form of material wealth the world may offer. The chosen then begin to understand that their spiritual journey demands a level of detachment from the material world that many do not comprehend. By freeing themselves from the need to accumulate possessions, they find a way of living that is lighter, more connected to the spirit, and closer to what truly matters. They realize that true wealth is not in what they can possess but in what they can spiritually experience. This material detachment is seen as a form of freedom. The chosen begin to recognize that, by relying less on the material world, they become freer to follow their true spiritual mission. They are no longer bound by the need to earn more, accumulate more, or compete for financial status. Instead, they feel called to follow a path of simplicity, where possessions are seen as tools, not as ends in themselves. The encounter with the sacred, then, happens in a purer, more direct way. Without the weight of materialism, the chosen open themselves up to deeper spiritual experiences. They realize that the divine can be found in moments of simplicity, in nature, in the quiet of meditation, or in acts of service to others. By freeing themselves from the pressure to follow conventional paths of financial success, they find a form of prosperity that is more aligned with their soul and greater purpose. This quest for a more authentic spiritual connection, free from materialism, often leads the chosen to rediscover ancient spiritual practices that emphasize detachment and humility. They may explore philosophies that teach living with less, like Stoicism, Buddhism, or even the Christian teachings of simplicity and service. By incorporating these principles into their lives, the chosen begin to experience a form of wealth that is more lasting and satisfying than any material good. Ultimately, distancing oneself from churches that emphasize materialism is a step toward a simpler life, more focused on what truly matters spiritually. The chosen understand that by letting go of the obsession with material possessions, they open space for a deeper connection with the divine. They recognize that true prosperity comes from within, and by cultivating an authentic spiritual life, they are accumulating the only wealth that truly matters, that of the spirit. The power of spiritual individualism is a profound force that moves many of the chosen to follow their own paths outside traditional religious structures. For them, spirituality is a deeply personal journey, and following the dictates of an organized institution can often feel limiting. Spirituality is not a formula that can be identically replicated for everyone. Rather, it is something that grows and evolves according to one's own experiences, self-knowledge, and inner quest. This perception leads many of the chosen to explore their own path, away from the expectations imposed by a religious community. Spiritual individualism is not an act of rebellion or a rejection of traditions but rather a manifestation of each soul's authenticity in its quest for a direct connection with the divine. The chosen understand that to find this connection, they need to free themselves from structures that often condition them to follow a uniform path dictated by dogmas and rules. They realize that their journey is unique and cannot be compared or standardized. Each individual, with their experiences, traumas, lessons, and revelations, has a personal route to connect with the sacred, and this path cannot be controlled by others. This spiritual individuality can, for many, seem like a form of solitude, but the chosen learn to see solitude as an opportunity for introspection and self-discovery. Away from social and religious pressures, they find a space of silence where they can hear their own soul and feel the divine presence more clearly and purely. This space is where a fluid spirituality develops, one that is not static or dependent on rituals but alive and dynamic, able to adapt to internal changes in life's demands. In following the path of spiritual individualism, the chosen also embrace the freedom that comes with it. They are no longer bound by the expectations of a religious community that demands conformity and obedience. They are free from the burden of trying to fit into molds that do not resonate with their true essence. Instead, they are guided by their intuition, which becomes their spiritual compass. Intuition, a direct connection to the divine, guides their decisions, practices, and moments of communion with the sacred. This path, however, is not easy. Spiritual individualism demands a great deal of courage. By stepping away from established traditions and norms, the chosen often face criticism, misunderstandings, and even rejection from those who believe that the only valid form of spirituality is that practiced in a group under the guidance of a religious authority. Yet, the chosen who choose this path are willing to deal with these challenges because they understand that true spiritual freedom can only be achieved by following their own heart, not the expectations of others. The freedom to follow their own spiritual intuition does not necessarily mean a complete break from all traditions. On the contrary, many of the chosen still feel connected to certain elements of their spiritual heritage, but they do so in a conscious and personalized way. They may, for instance, keep prayer or meditation practices learned in a church but adapt them to their new understanding of spirituality. They do not reject what they have been taught but instead choose what makes sense in their current journey, discarding what no longer resonates with their inner truth. Another important aspect of spiritual individualism is that it allows for a more integrative approach to spirituality. Rather than limiting themselves to a single religious tradition, many chosen seek knowledge from various sources. They become spiritual explorers, studying different philosophies, religions, and spiritual practices, and extracting wisdom from all of them. This openness to universal knowledge allows them to build a spirituality that is not only inclusive but also expansive, enabling a deeper connection with the divine. This call for personal spiritual awakening also requires courage, as it often involves breaking away from deeply rooted family or community traditions. The chosen one may face criticism, judgment, and even rejection from those still bound to conventional forms of religious practice. However, this courage to follow their own path allows them to live an authentic life, true to themselves and their divine purpose. In answering this call, the chosen one also discovers that spiritual awakening is not a one-time event but a continuous process. At each new phase of their journey, they encounter new lessons, challenges, and opportunities for growth. This cycle of awakening and evolution is endless, yet each step toward truth and spiritual freedom brings them closer to their true essence and the divine purpose for their life. Ultimately, personal spiritual awakening is an invitation for the chosen to live fully and consciously. By abandoning structures that no longer serve them, they open themselves to a deeper, more fulfilling spiritual experience, where their connection with the divine is constant, and they can live their faith freely and authentically. This awakening is the starting point for a rich and meaningful spiritual life, guided by inner truth and the presence of the divine in all aspects of their existence. As the chosen one responds to their spiritual awakening, they begin to notice the impact of the information age on their journey. We live in a time where access to spiritual knowledge from various traditions is vast and immediate. The internet has enabled spiritual seekers like the chosen to explore different philosophies and teachings, breaking free from the limitations of any singular religious institution. This free flow of information profoundly influences how the chosen perceive spirituality, opening new horizons and allowing a broader integration of ancient and contemporary wisdoms. Before the digital age, access to spiritual knowledge was limited to sacred texts, religious ceremonies, and teachings passed down within closed communities. Information was largely confined to specific places, such as temples, churches, or specialized libraries. However, with the rise of the internet, knowledge that was once hidden or inaccessible has become available to anyone with a connection. This has given the chosen an opportunity to broaden their perspectives and integrate wisdom from various spiritual cultures and traditions worldwide. By accessing different philosophies and practices, the chosen one has the chance to build a more inclusive and holistic spirituality. They can study Buddhist meditation practices, ancestral shamanic wisdom, Stoic philosophical teachings, and even explore mysticism within monotheistic religions. This new panorama allows them to break free from a rigid dogmatic system, finding the freedom to follow a path more aligned with their own inner truth. The information age also creates a space where questioning can arise and deepen. Many chosen individuals, upon accessing various sources, encounter information that challenges the established beliefs they were raised with. This triggers a process of re-evaluation and deconstruction of old dogmas, leading to a more vibrant and evolving spirituality. They don't just consume new ideas but filter them through the lens of their own intuition and personal experience, discerning what resonates with their souls. This openness to new wisdom allows the chosen to connect with the divine in ways that previously seemed impossible. Spiritual practice shifts from being a linear path to a mosaic of teachings reflecting the multiplicity of human experiences. This richness of possibilities offers the opportunity to integrate spiritual and philosophical practices that not only nurture the spirit but also provide a deeper understanding of one's existence and role in the cosmos. However, this freedom and vast array of information can also present challenges. With so many voices and teachings available, the chosen may feel overwhelmed or uncertain about which path to follow. This is a natural part of the discovery journey. The abundance of information can create the illusion that there is an absolute truth to be found, but true wisdom lies in recognizing that the spiritual path is deeply personal and that each must follow what resonates authentically with their soul. Furthermore, the information age has allowed for the emergence of online spiritual communities centered around shared interests and practices. This helps fill the void left by leaving traditional churches, as it allows the chosen to connect with people worldwide who share similar experiences. These virtual communities offer support, knowledge exchange, and inspiration, creating a sense of belonging that transcends geographic and institutional boundaries. Another significant aspect of the information age is the democratization of spiritual knowledge. What was once restricted to clergy or religious leaders is now available to anyone seeking it. The chosen no longer need to rely on intermediaries to understand the sacred. They can access sources directly, study original texts, and form their conclusions. This direct access to knowledge strengthens spiritual autonomy and empowers the individual in their journey. The information age also makes it possible for spiritual practices marginalized or suppressed by traditional institutions to find new life. Ancient wisdom, long dismissed as heresy or esoteric, now finds space to flourish and be rediscovered by those seeking a more authentic connection with the divine. This includes practices such as energy healing, shamanism, mysticism, and spiritual alchemy, which are being reintegrated into the spiritual repertoire of many chosen individuals. However, with all this openness, the chosen must exercise caution. Not all circulating information is reliable or resonates with spiritual truth. The information age is also filled with noise, distractions, and misinformation. Thus, discernment is an essential skill for the chosen one to navigate this vast ocean of wisdom. They must learn to distinguish what is superficial from what is profound, what is transient from what is eternal, and what is illusory from what is authentic. The information age is, at once, a great blessing and a challenge for the chosen. It offers them the opportunity to explore a wealth of knowledge, expand their consciousness, and build a truly personal and meaningful spirituality. Yet it also challenges them to stay anchored in their own truth amid a sea of possibilities. By embracing discernment and trusting their intuition, the chosen can navigate this era with wisdom, integrating teachings that genuinely elevate them and bring them closer to the divine. As the chosen continue their spiritual journey, stepping away from the church often reveals itself as a process of deep healing and reconnection with the sacred. For many, the structure and rituals of religious institutions, which should be a bridge to the divine, end up becoming barriers. The pressure to follow certain dogmas and practices can divert a genuine connection with the sacred, making the spiritual experience something distant and almost mechanical. This disconnection creates a void, but it also presents an opportunity. When the chosen decide to step away from the church, they enter a period of introspection where they question their relationship with the divine and redefine what spirituality means to them. This is a painful yet profoundly healing process. By moving away from external expectations and the need to follow norms, they begin to find their true connection with the sacred, a connection that is free, authentic, and deeply personal. Often, this healing occurs in silence. The absence of external voices, sermons, advice, or rules allows the chosen one to finally listen to their own soul. Silence becomes a sacred space where they can dive within and hear the inner voice that guides them. The practice of silence, whether through meditation, contemplation, or simple quietness, reveals a new level of intimacy with the divine. In the silence, the chosen one discovers that intermediaries are unnecessary for speaking with God, as this communication is always available within. In addition to silence, nature also plays a crucial role in this process of reconnection. Away from the church walls, many of the chosen rediscover the sacred within the elements of creation. The vastness of the sky, the strength of the mountains, the tranquility of the waters, all become tangible expressions of divinity. Being in harmony with nature allows the chosen to connect with the natural flow of life, perceiving the divine in everything around them. This contact with nature is a way of returning to spiritual roots, where God's presence is felt in every leaf, every ray of sunlight, every heartbeat. This reconnection with the sacred, outside institutional structures, also provides an opportunity for the chosen to heal their spiritual wounds. Many who step away from the church carry scars of judgment, exclusion, and misunderstanding. Perhaps they were marginalized for their doubts or condemned for questioning teachings. This healing process involves forgiving these experiences and recognizing that they were, in part, necessary to catalyze their spiritual liberation. Healing, therefore, is not only a personal relief but also a release from the emotional and spiritual chains that bound them to a form of worship that no longer served. During this time of distancing, the chosen also rediscover new spiritual practices that resonate deeply with their soul. Free from imposed rituals, they can explore different ways of connecting with the divine. Whether through silent prayer, music, art, dance, or new forms of meditation, they find a living spirituality that adapts to their needs and phases of their journey. These practices are highly personal and often arise spontaneously as they surrender to the fluidity of spirituality. Moreover, this phase of reconnection allows the chosen to experience spirituality as something constant, not confined to a specific time or place. There is no longer a need to wait for Sunday to feel close to God. Spirituality becomes an intrinsic part of daily life. While cooking, walking, or working, the chosen can feel the presence of the divine in everything they do. This continuous spiritual awareness profoundly transforms life, as the sacred is now lived in every moment, not just in occasions reserved for formal worship. This call to personal spiritual awakening also demands courage, as it often involves breaking away from deeply ingrained family or community traditions. The chosen may face criticism, judgment, and even rejection from those still attached to conventional religious practices. However, this courage to follow their own path enables them to live an authentic life, true to themselves and their divine purpose. In answering this call, the chosen also discovers that spiritual awakening is not a single event but a continuous process. At each new phase of their journey, they encounter fresh lessons, challenges, and growth opportunities. This cycle of awakening and evolution is endless, yet every step toward truth and spiritual freedom brings them closer to their true essence and divine purpose. Ultimately, personal spiritual awakening is an invitation for the chosen to live fully and consciously. By abandoning structures that no longer serve them, they open up to a deeper, more rewarding spiritual experience where their connection with the divine is constant, allowing them to live their faith freely and authentically. This awakening is the starting point for a rich and meaningful spiritual life, guided by inner truth and the divine's presence in all aspects of their existence. As the chosen one follows the call to spiritual awakening, many feel they are being directed toward something greater, a mission or purpose that transcends the confines of religious institutions. This call cannot be ignored, resonating deep within their souls as a soft yet persistent voice echoing in their hearts. For many, the spiritual awakening begins as an inner restlessness, a sense that something in their lives is misaligned with their divine purpose. Gradually, they realize that this misalignment is largely tied to the religious structures around them. When the chosen feel this call to something greater, they often realize they can no longer continue following imposed religious traditions. The rules, rituals, and doctrines start to feel oppressive and restrictive, blocking the true expression of their spirituality. This greater call they feel is an unstoppable force guiding them away from convention and toward a more authentic, unbound journey. Following a greater purpose requires courage, as it often means breaking away from the familiar and comfortable. For many chosen ones, leaving the church is not an easy decision, as it may involve leaving behind a community that has supported them for much of their lives. It may mean facing the judgment and misunderstanding of family and friends who remain within the religious structure. However, this courage is rewarded with a sense of spiritual freedom that is priceless. By breaking away from traditions that no longer serve their evolution, the chosen creates space for something new and profoundly transformative. The process of breaking from religious traditions is, for many chosen ones, a rite of passage. It is a moment when they must ask themselves if they are willing to follow the path that God truly intended for them, or if they prefer to hide behind dogmas and structures that limit their true expression. Breaking with organized religion is thus an act of total trust in the divine plan and a recognition that true faith is not tied to institutions but to a direct and personal connection with the divine. This break does not mean that the chosen abandons their faith. On the contrary, by leaving the church, many chosen ones experience a profound renewal of faith. They feel more connected to God than ever because they can now live their spirituality without the external interference that once limited them. They discover that the divine is present in all aspects of their lives and that true worship can happen anywhere, in the silence of meditation, in communion with nature, and in the small actions of daily life. The call to a greater purpose also signifies that the chosen one is being prepared for a specific mission. Each has a unique role to play in the divine plan, and by leaving the church they begin to see more clearly what that role is. For some, this mission may be to help others awaken to their spiritual journeys. For others, it may mean serving as healers, teachers, or spiritual leaders outside conventional structures. Whatever the mission, it will always align with the chosen one's unique gifts and talents. These gifts often reveal themselves during the process of stepping away from religious institutions. Freed from imposed expectations and rules, the chosen begins to explore their spiritual capacities more deeply. They open themselves to new forms of wisdom, new practices, and new ways to serve the divine. And in doing so, they discover that they have everything they need within them to fulfill their mission. The path is not easy but fulfilling, as each step toward the divine purpose brings a sense of wholeness and inner peace. Furthermore, the call to a greater purpose also involves responsibility. The chosen understand that by following this path, they are committing to their spiritual growth and the greater good of humanity. This commitment cannot be taken lightly, as it requires discipline, perseverance, and unshakable faith. By leaving the church, they are not just leaving an institution but are committing to a new way of life, a life guided by spirit, truth, and love. This responsibility also means that the chosen must be beacons of light in a world often shrouded in darkness. They are called to live with integrity, compassion, and wisdom, serving as examples for those still trapped in the snares of superficiality and materialism. By following their greater purpose, the chosen not only transform their own lives but also inspire and uplift others around them. Following the call to a greater purpose is thus an act of service to the divine and humanity. The chosen know that their mission is not only about them but about something far greater. They are here to bring light to the world, spread wisdom, and help heal humanity's spiritual wounds. By answering this call, they align themselves with the natural flow of the universe, allowing the divine to guide them in every step of their journey. This journey is not always easy. Often, the chosen face challenges, doubts, and fears along the way. But by pursuing their greater purpose, they know they are doing what they were called to do. They find strength in their connection with the divine and in their faith that they are exactly where they should be. Every obstacle becomes an opportunity for growth, and every victory a confirmation that they are on the right path. The process of leaving the church to pursue a greater purpose is, therefore, an essential part of the chosen's spiritual journey. It is a testament to their courage, faith, and commitment to their evolution and the greater good of humanity. By answering this call, they become living examples of how true spirituality transcends human structures and manifests in a life of service, authenticity, and love. The chosen's path is filled with difficult decisions, and one of the most challenging is leaving the church to pursue a more authentic and meaningful spiritual journey. This raises countless questions and often sparks a period of deep reflection and self-examination. By deciding to leave the church, the chosen are not rejecting their faith but taking a brave step toward a deeper spirituality, free from the restrictions and structures that no longer serve their growth. This journey is a process of self-discovery, where the chosen must seek the divine within themselves rather than relying on external institutions to mediate their spiritual connection. This break is not a loss of faith but rather an act of spiritual empowerment. For many, leaving the church means freeing themselves from dogmas that no longer resonate with their inner truth. The process of questioning long-held religious traditions and dogmas often begins with a feeling of disconnection. Rituals that once felt profound and spiritual may start to feel empty and mechanical, lacking the true presence of spirit. This disconnection often creates inner conflict, as the chosen realizes they can no longer follow something that does not speak to their heart. By leaving the church, the chosen opens themselves up to new forms of worship and connection with the divine. They realize that spirituality is not limited by buildings' walls or dictated by religious leaders, but is a living, dynamic experience that can be felt in every moment of life. This includes connecting with nature, moments of inner silence, and the ability to see the sacred in every detail of existence. This type of spirituality is free and fluid, allowing the chosen to explore their connection with God in ways that might have once been considered unconventional or even forbidden within the institutional religious environment. This path, however, is not without challenges. The decision to leave the church often leads to an initial sense of isolation. Those who were once part of a religious community may feel they have lost the support and security of that community. This transition period can be lonely, but it is also profoundly transformative. Solitude often acts as a catalyst for spiritual growth, forcing the chosen to confront their own beliefs, fears, and desires more directly and honestly. At the same time, the chosen one begins to realize that true spiritual community is not limited to a single institution or denomination. Along their journey, they encounter like-minded souls also seeking a deeper connection with the divine. These new communities are often smaller, more intimate, and focused on a more authentic, practical spirituality. These groups offer mutual support and understanding, without the rigid hierarchy or social expectations that often accompany large religious congregations. Another essential aspect of this journey is the need to trust oneself and inner guidance. By leaving the church, the chosen is called to listen more closely to their intuition and follow the inner voice of the Spirit. This requires courage, as it often means going against what is socially acceptable or conventional. However, this trust in one's own spiritual path allows the chosen to thrive and find deeper meaning in life. The healing process also plays a fundamental role in the journey of the chosen ones who leave the church. For many, experiences within the church may have been painful or harmful, whether due to judgment, expectations, or human failings within the institution. Stepping away from the church is an opportunity to reassess these spiritual wounds and begin the healing process. This healing can occur in various ways, through meditation, personal prayer, connecting with nature, or exploring new spiritual practices. In doing so, the chosen begins to reconnect with the sacred in a way that deeply resonates with their soul. This reconnection with the sacred often marks a spiritual rebirth. The chosen one starts seeing divinity in all aspects of life, recognizing that the sacred is not confined to a temple or church but is present everywhere. This awareness brings profound peace and joy, as spirituality becomes an integral part of each moment, rather than something experienced only in specific places or on certain occasions. Leaving the church also requires the chosen to redefine their relationship with divine purpose. The spiritual purpose of the chosen often extends beyond the limitations of religious institutions. By responding to this call, the chosen discovers that their spiritual mission is greater than any rules or church traditions could allow. This may involve serving others more authentically, whether through healing, teaching, or simply living in alignment with their deepest values. Living out this mission brings the chosen into alignment with the divine plan, providing a sense of fulfillment that cannot be found within traditional religious structures. However, following this path requires the chosen to accept uncertainty and embrace the unknown. The spiritual journey is often unpredictable, and the path is not always clear. But it is precisely this uncertainty that allows the chosen to grow and evolve. By trusting in the divine flow and inner guidance, the chosen finds strength and wisdom in every step of the journey, even when the path feels difficult or lonely. Ultimately, the journey of the chosen ones who leave the church is a search for spiritual freedom. They are not abandoning their faith but rather seeking a more authentic and personal expression of it. They are freeing themselves from the limitations imposed by human institutions and embracing a more direct and intimate connection with the divine. This spiritual freedom allows the chosen one to live fully in their truth and fulfill their soul's purpose with integrity and courage. The disconnect between dogma and living spirituality is one of the deepest reasons many chosen ones decide to leave the church. Dogmas, often based on ancient and rigid interpretations of Scripture, can become a burden for those in search of a more fluid and expansive spirituality. Living faith, the kind that pulses in the heart and manifests in daily acts of compassion, love, and growth, often finds little room within the dogmatic structures of religious institutions. For the chosen, spirituality cannot be contained within a set of rules or traditions. The true connection with the divine transcends the words written in a book or the practices established by an organization. This awareness leads many to question whether dogmas and standardized rituals genuinely reflect spiritual truth or actually limit their direct experience with God. Many chosen ones come to realize that authentic spirituality is personal, subjective, and individually lived. They recognize that blindly following rules and dogmas that no longer resonate with their inner essence is a form of dishonesty with themselves. This creates internal conflict as they wish to remain connected to their faith, yet feel that religious structures do not allow them to fully express this faith in a genuine and alive way. This conflict is intensified by the fact that many religious leaders emphasize the need to strictly adhere to dogmas and rituals as a path to salvation. However, for the chosen, this approach often feels suffocating. They begin to understand that spirituality is a dynamic, constantly evolving process and that the rigid, unchanging rules of dogma can stifle this growth. The chosen also tend to be people who challenge the status quo. They question what is presented to them, not out of rebellion, but from a genuine need to find the truth for themselves. This philosophical questioning is an essential part of their spiritual journey. They are not content with accepting ready-made answers. Instead, they seek a deeper, more personal understanding of God and the universe. Intuition and direct connection with the Spirit become the primary guides for the chosen. They begin to realize that instead of blindly following traditions and dogmas, they can trust their own spiritual experiences. This reliance on intuition may be unsettling for those still deeply rooted in traditional religious structures, but for the chosen, it is liberating. They feel free to finally follow a path that truly resonates with their souls, without the limitations imposed by dogma. Stepping away from religious institutions does not mean the chosen are abandoning their faith. On the contrary, they are seeking a purer, more authentic expression of this faith. They want to connect with the divine in a way that goes beyond words and rituals, a connection felt deeply in their hearts and guiding all their actions. Moreover, many chosen ones recognize that the rigidity of dogmas often creates a barrier between people and God. Rather than facilitating a spiritual connection, dogmas can alienate those who cannot conform to them. For the chosen, this exclusivity is problematic, as they believe God is available to everyone, regardless of adherence to a specific set of beliefs or practices. This realization leads them to greater openness toward other spiritual traditions and philosophies. They understand that spiritual truth can be found on many different paths and that no single path holds a monopoly on truth. This openness also helps them grow spiritually, as they are willing to learn from diverse sources and integrate these teachings into their journey. Questioning dogma and seeking a living, authentic spirituality also leads the chosen to redefine what it means to live a spiritual life. For many, this means abandoning the idea that there is only one right way to connect with the divine. They begin to explore new forms of prayer, meditation, and worship that resonate more deeply with their souls. These practices may include moments of silence and introspection, communion with nature, or creative expression through art and music. This new approach to spirituality also prompts the chosen to reconsider the role of organized religion in their lives. They see that while religious institutions can provide structure and community, they can also stifle spiritual individuality. For the chosen, the freedom to follow their spiritual path is essential. They need the space to explore, question, and grow without being constrained by externally imposed rules or expectations. This spiritual freedom, however, comes with challenges. Leaving the safety of the church and its dogmas can be daunting. Without a clear structure to guide them, the chosen may feel lost or uncertain about the next step in their journey. Yet, it is precisely in this uncertainty that they find the opportunity to develop a deeper faith. By trusting their intuition and the spiritual guidance they receive directly from God, they learn to walk with confidence, even when the path ahead seems unclear. Ultimately, the disconnect between dogma and living spirituality is not a sign of lost faith but of spiritual evolution. The chosen are on a path that leads them to question, explore, and ultimately find a more authentic and meaningful connection with the divine. They are not rejecting their faith but rather deepening it, seeking a truth that goes beyond words and rituals and resonates profoundly with their souls. Rejecting materialism and embracing the sacred is a fundamental step in the journey of the chosen ones. Many begin to realize that over time, churches have become overly focused on material concerns, such as fundraising, building large temples, and accumulating wealth. This emphasis on materialism creates a deep misalignment for those who seek a purer, more authentic connection with the spiritual and the divine. For the chosen, true spiritual growth cannot be measured by material wealth or possessions. It lies in the depth of connection with God and the development of inner virtues such as compassion, humility, and love. The religious environment, when dominated by financial concerns, creates an uncomfortable contrast for the chosen ones. They begin to question how a focus on fundraising, donations, and financial campaigns can align with spiritual teachings of detachment and simplicity. For many, this questioning leads to a growing sense of disconnection. They see that while the church is occupied with the material world, their own soul longs for something far deeper, something that transcends what is tangible and measurable. Throughout their journeys, many chosen ones are called to reconsider their relationship with money and material possessions. They become more aware of how the desire for wealth can distract from what truly matters in their spiritual lives. For them, materialism is not just a temptation. It is also an obstacle that blocks spiritual growth. Churches that emphasize materialism, often at the expense of deeper spiritual teachings, become less appealing to the chosen ones. They start to see that true wealth lies in their relationship with God, in their ability to serve others, and in their inner growth, not in the amount of money they can accumulate or donate. At this point in their journey, encounters with the sacred often happen in unexpected and simple ways. Instead of finding God in grand buildings or sermons filled with promises of prosperity, many chosen ones find the divine in the silence of a walk in nature, in the quiet of a moment of prayer at home, or in the simplicity of an act of kindness toward a stranger. This return to the sacred, away from the distractions of materialism, is deeply transformative. They begin to understand that God is not confined to a building or a religious system but is present everywhere, waiting to be found in the simplest and purest experiences of life. This awakening to the sacred also prompts them to rethink what it means to be wealthy. For the chosen ones, true wealth cannot be measured in monetary terms. It is measured by peace of mind, by the depth of faith, by the love they can share, and by the positive impact they have on the lives of others. By rejecting materialism, they are not rejecting comfort or security, but rather the idea that these things are the ultimate goal of their lives. They know that comfort and security can be fleeting, and that placing all their faith in them is building life on an unstable foundation. The disconnect between the materialism of churches and the pursuit of authentic spirituality also leads the chosen ones to greater introspection. They begin to examine their own motivations and desires more closely, asking themselves, am I living to accumulate wealth and possessions? Or am I living to become a better person, more connected to the divine? This self-analysis often reveals that the true purpose of life is not in having, but in being a loving, compassionate, wise person. Being someone who lives in harmony with the world around them and who seeks spiritual truth, even if it means following a less traveled path. Rejecting materialism also brings freedom. The chosen ones start to feel that by letting go of the relentless pursuit of material wealth, they become freer to pursue their true purpose in life. They are no longer bound by the need to impress others with what they own or to follow society's model of success. Instead, they are free to live according to their spiritual values, even if it means leading a simpler, less consumption-centered life. This process of liberation can be challenging, as it involves unlearning many of the values that modern society, and in some cases churches, teach. But for the chosen, this unlearning is essential for their spiritual growth. They know that to become truly spiritual, they must move away from what is superficial and transitory and focus on what is eternal and true. As they distance themselves from materialism, the chosen ones also find that their material needs are met in unexpected ways. Rather than seeking to accumulate, they learn to trust that the universe, or God, will provide all that they truly need. And this provision often comes in ways they could never have predicted. By living a life of service and faith, the chosen ones discover that their true security comes from their connection with the divine, not from the amount of money in their bank accounts. This encounter with the sacred, free from the distractions of materialism, is profoundly transformative. It allows the chosen ones to live with greater integrity and purpose. They are no longer divided between the desire to please the material world and the desire to follow their spiritual path. Instead, they find an inner unity, a peace that comes from knowing they are living according to their true beliefs and values. This new perspective also transforms how the chosen ones see the world around them. They begin to realize that many of the things that once seemed important, status, wealth, material possessions, are illusions. What truly matters is the quality of their connection with the divine, with others, and with themselves. And this quality cannot be measured in terms of material wealth. The power of spiritual individualism emerges as one of the primary motivations that drives the chosen to leave formal religious institutions. As they advance on their spiritual journeys, many realize that their path is unique and deeply personal, and that traditional religious structures often do not offer the freedom needed to follow their soul's calling. They begin to understand that the spiritual path cannot be fully shaped or controlled by external rules, repetitive rituals, or dogmas, but must be discovered from within, through a direct connection with the divine and a deep listening to their own intuition. This awakening to spiritual individualism can be unsettling at first. Most chosen ones were raised in religious systems that prioritize conformity, obedience to authority, and adherence to collective rules. However, as they become more aware of their own journey, they begin to see that these structures, though useful at some point, can become limiting and hinder true spiritual growth. They long for a direct connection with the divine, without the need for intermediaries or following a path predetermined by others. Spiritual individualism does not mean selfishness or isolation, but rather the freedom to follow the path that resonates most with the soul, without the constraints of a religious community that imposes certain dogmas or traditions. Many chosen ones feel that to access their deepest truth, they need to let go of the need for external approval and the expectations of the religious society in which they grew up. They recognize that each soul has a unique path and that true spirituality is about finding this personal path, not about following a formula or set of rules that apply equally to everyone. In leaving formal structures, many chosen ones find the freedom to explore different spiritual traditions and philosophies. They begin to integrate aspects of various practices, from meditation to prayer, from philosophical study to communion with nature, shaping a spirituality that is unique to them. This more eclectic and personalized approach allows the chosen ones to feel more connected to their own spiritual essence without feeling restricted by the expectations of a larger organization. This process of spiritual individualization often requires courage. Challenging norms and breaking away from religious traditions can evoke feelings of guilt or fear of being rejected by those who remain part of these communities. However, for the chosen, this break is necessary to pursue deeper spiritual freedom. They learn to trust their own internal compass, even when it means following a path that others may not understand or approve of. Furthermore, spiritual individualism brings greater responsibility. By no longer relying on religious leaders, scriptures, or rituals to guide their path, the chosen ones become entirely responsible for their spiritual journey. This means they must learn to discern between the voice of their own soul and the distractions and illusions of the outside world. This process of discernment is continuous and requires a constant practice of introspection and meditation. They must constantly ask themselves, am I living according to my deepest truth? Am I aligned with my soul's purpose? This quest for spiritual authenticity is what differentiates the chosen's path. They are not interested in following a path simply because it was taught to them, but because they have found, through their own experience, what is true and meaningful. And this truth can vary greatly from one person to another. For some, it may mean a return to more traditional religious practices but with a new perspective. For others, it may mean a complete departure from religious institutions to find a more direct connection with the divine. The freedom of spiritual individualism also allows the chosen ones to explore their spirituality in unconventional ways. They may find that their connection to the divine is strongest when they are alone in nature, or that they find deep inner peace in practicing creative activities such as music or art. These moments of discovery are often the most powerful forms of spiritual growth, as they stem from direct personal experience, not from something prescribed by an external authority. By following their own path, the chosen ones also learn to value experience over theory. They are no longer interested in merely accumulating spiritual knowledge or following dogmas without question. Instead, they seek direct experiences of connection with the divine. This can happen in moments of silence and interactions with others, or even in challenges and adversities. Each experience becomes an opportunity to learn, grow, and deepen their spiritual journey. This approach also helps them develop a more authentic relationship with the divine. Instead of seeing God or the sacred as something distant, accessible only through formal rituals or religious intermediaries, the chosen ones begin to realize that the divine is always present, in every moment and in everything. This realization frees them from the constraints of structured religious practice and allows them to live their spirituality in a more integrated way in daily life. God is no longer something to be accessed only in a temple or church. The divine becomes a living part of every moment of their lives. Additionally, the spiritual individualism of the chosen ones leads them to a form of worship that is continuous and constant. They learn that worshiping God is not something reserved for Sundays or specific rituals. Instead, every action, every thought, and every choice can be a way to honor the divine. This more holistic and integrated approach to spirituality allows them to live with greater purpose and awareness, knowing that their entire life is an expression of their connection with the sacred. For the chosen, spiritual individualism is a journey of self-discovery and freedom. It liberates them from external expectations and allows them to follow the deepest callings of their souls. Although this journey is not always easy, it is deeply rewarding, as it offers them the opportunity to live an authentic life, in harmony with their most profound spiritual values. As many chosen ones distance themselves from conventional churches, they find themselves seeking smaller, more authentic communities. This need for fellowship with like-minded souls arises from a desire for a more intimate and profound spirituality, unconfined by the rigid structures of large religious institutions. The chosen often yearn for a type of community that welcomes them as they are, without demanding conformity to doctrines, but rather valuing the individual quest for meaning and connection with the divine. At the beginning of their journeys, many chosen ones may have found a sense of belonging within churches, but over time, they realize that large congregations do not always allow for a true and meaningful connection. Churches often emphasize member numbers and participation in mass rituals, which can give an impression of unity but, in reality, may create a sense of spiritual isolation for those seeking something deeper. Many chosen ones feel that, instead of nurturing the soul, large churches can end up stifling their spiritual individuality, especially when there is an expectation of conformity over authenticity. For this reason, many of these individuals begin to seek smaller communities, where personal connection is valued over adherence to rules or traditions. These smaller communities may form as spiritual study groups, gatherings in homes, or even circles of friends with a shared interest in spiritual topics. The essential difference between these communities and large churches is the emphasis on the authenticity of relationships, where each person is encouraged to share their journey in learning without fear of judgment or reprimand. This approach echoes the early days of Christianity, where communities were small and focused on mutual support and spiritual growth. At that time, early Christians gathered in homes, shared meals, and exchanged their faith experiences in a simple and authentic way. This model of intimate and mutually supportive communion is what many chosen ones seek today. They feel that, rather than being surrounded by hundreds of people, it is more important to be in communion with a small group of souls who share the same quest for truth and authenticity. Another important characteristic of these smaller communities is the absence of rigid hierarchies. Many traditional churches are structured around leaders who hold spiritual authority and are often seen as intermediaries between the faithful and the divine. However, the chosen ones feel that this hierarchy is unnecessary and, in some cases, may even become an obstacle to true spiritual connection. In smaller and more authentic communities, the focus is on spiritual equality, where all members are seen as equally capable of connecting with the divine and sharing their insights and experiences. Furthermore, these communities tend to be more flexible concerning spiritual practice. They are not limited to a set of rituals or doctrines but allow each person to bring their own perspective and experience to the table. This flexibility is important to the chosen ones, as they feel that their spiritual journey is unique and cannot be shaped by fixed rules. Instead of following an imposed routine, they prefer that spiritual practice be something dynamic that evolves according to their intuition and connection with the divine. In the modern world, many of these communities are also emerging online. The internet enables the chosen ones to connect with others worldwide who share the same search for an authentic spirituality. Spiritual study groups, forums, and social networks offer a space where the chosen can share their experiences, learn from one another, and find emotional and spiritual support, even when they are physically distant. These online communities are especially important for the chosen ones who live in areas where there are few opportunities to connect with like-minded individuals. For them, the internet provides a bridge to find kindred souls scattered across the globe. Additionally, the online environment allows the chosen ones to explore a variety of spiritual traditions and teachings, further enriching their personal journeys. Many find comfort and inspiration in connecting with spiritual masters, philosophers, or other individuals who share their perspectives, helping them expand their worldview and continue to grow spiritually. However, while these online communities are valuable, many chosen ones still feel the need for in-person connection. They seek gatherings where they can share energy, look into each other's eyes, and feel the physical presence of a community. These gatherings may occur in spiritual retreats, meditation circles, or simple gatherings of friends who share the same spiritual quest. The key is the authenticity of the connections, not the number of participants or the formality of the practices. For many chosen ones, this quest for smaller, more authentic communities is a reaction to the impersonality they feel in large churches. They realize that while churches may offer a sense of belonging to a larger group, this often comes at the expense of a true spiritual connection. In contrast, in smaller communities, they find a space where they can be themselves, share their experiences without fear, and grow spiritually in an environment of mutual support and respect. Moreover, these smaller communities provide a space for the chosen to practice spiritual service in a more direct and meaningful way. While service is often institutionalized in large churches, small communities offer more room for acts of kindness, care, and compassion among members. This mutual service is a powerful way to live out spirituality, allowing the chosen ones to express their love and connection with the divine through concrete actions that directly benefit those around them. This approach of smaller and more authentic community not only meets the chosen's need for a truer spirituality but also helps strengthen their spiritual journey. By surrounding themselves with souls who share their spiritual aspirations, they find inspiration and support to keep growing and exploring new levels of consciousness and connection with the divine. Throughout the spiritual journey of many chosen ones, an inner calling emerges that leads them to a profound redefinition of their beliefs and religious practices. This calling usually involves leaving behind institutions and systems that once seemed to serve the spiritual purpose to follow a more personal and meaningful path. Spiritual awakening is often accompanied by an uncontrollable desire to find a more direct and authentic connection with the divine, free from intermediaries or restrictions imposed by rigid doctrines or practices. This call for personal spiritual awakening is one of the most transformative moments in a chosen one's life. It's as if an inner light begins to shine more intensely, illuminating aspects of their life that were previously hidden in the shadows of conformity or religious tradition. Awakening is not something that happens suddenly or effortlessly. It is the result of a profound search for meaning and truth. As this inner light grows, the chosen begins to question everything around them. The beliefs they were taught, the rituals they followed for years, and even the very structure of the religious institutions they trusted. This moment of awakening is often accompanied by a feeling of discomfort. There's a sense that something no longer aligns with the inner truth that the chosen is beginning to discover. What once brought comfort, the repetition of rituals, the security of belonging to a religious community, now feels oppressive or even limiting. It's as if the chosen is being called to break away from old forms of living their spirituality and to find a new path that resonates more deeply with their soul. This transition can be challenging and lonely. Leaving behind a religious community or institutional structure that provided support and security can be frightening. However, the chosen feels there is no other option but to follow this inner call. It's as if something greater and more powerful is guiding them out of the constraints of organized religion and into a more expansive and free journey. This journey is highly personal and unique to each chosen one, as it involves discovering their own connection with the divine without needing to follow the rules or expectations of others. The call for personal spiritual awakening also brings a redefinition of what it means to worship and connect with the divine. For many, spiritual practice becomes less about external rituals and more about an inner experience of connection and presence. Worship can occur in the silence of deep meditation, during a walk in nature, or in moments of quiet reflection. The chosen one realizes that the divine is present in all things and that true spiritual connection is not limited to a specific place or practice. Instead, it becomes a continuous experience that permeates all aspects of life. This shift in perspective also involves redefining what it means to be spiritual. For many chosen ones, spirituality is no longer associated with following rules or participating in religious ceremonies. Instead, it's about living authentically and in alignment with one's inner truth. Daily life becomes an expression of spirituality, with every action, thought, and word reflecting a connection with the divine. This approach allows the chosen one to live with more freedom and joy, without the pressures and expectations that often come from religious institutions. Personal spiritual awakening also brings a sense of responsibility. The chosen one realizes that by following this call, they are committing to live according to a higher truth. This commitment may mean facing challenges and overcoming obstacles, as the path of awakening is not always easy. Often, the chosen one confronts their own shadows and fears and is compelled to face them head-on. However, this process of self-discovery and growth is essential for spiritual development. Through it, the chosen one becomes stronger, wiser, and more connected to the divine. Additionally, the call for personal spiritual awakening often involves the need to release old patterns of thought and behavior that no longer align with the chosen one's new perspective. This may include limiting beliefs, fears, or even relationships that no longer resonate with their spiritual journey. This process of detachment can be painful but is necessary for growth and evolution. As these old patterns are released, the chosen one opens up to new possibilities and spiritual experiences that further enrich their journey. One of the most profound rewards of following this call for personal spiritual awakening is the sense of freedom and empowerment that comes with it. The chosen one is no longer bound by others' expectations or the rules of an institution. Instead, they are guided by their own inner connection to the divine, which allows them to live according to their unique truth. This spiritual freedom is one of the greatest blessings of the chosen one's journey, as it allows them to live with authenticity and integrity, regardless of external opinions or judgments. This journey of awakening also leads the chosen one to a deeper understanding of their spiritual mission. They realize they are here to fulfill a greater purpose that transcends the limitations of organized religion. This purpose may involve serving others in ways that resonate with their soul, sharing spiritual wisdom, or simply living in a way that inspires others to follow their own path of awakening. Whatever the mission, the chosen one knows they are here to make a meaningful difference in the world and that their spiritual awakening is an essential part of this process. Ultimately, the call for personal spiritual awakening is a journey of returning to the chosen one's true self. It is a journey of self-discovery, of deep connection with the divine, and of spiritual freedom. Though it may be challenging, this journey is also incredibly rewarding, as it allows the chosen one to live according to their highest truth and fulfill their divine purpose. As they continue along this path, they discover that the divine is always by their side, guiding and supporting them every step of the way. The impact of the information age on the spirituality of the chosen ones is profound and transformative. In the past, access to spiritual knowledge was often limited to local traditions, family beliefs, or the religious institutions of each community. However, with the advent of the information age, the way chosen ones explore and experience spirituality has changed dramatically. Spiritual knowledge is now more accessible than ever, with teachings from various traditions, philosophies, and cultures just a click away. This unlimited access to global knowledge has allowed the chosen ones to expand their perspectives and integrate different spiritual views into their personal journeys. The information age has opened the door to a new form of spiritual exploration, where teachings from masters and sages worldwide can be studied and practiced without the need to adhere to a specific tradition. For many chosen ones, this has been liberating, as it allows a broader exploration of spirituality, free from the constraints of dogmas or religious practices that often restrict the personal quest for meaning. Instead of relying on a single source of truth, the chosen ones can dive into various traditions and find what resonates most with their souls. This openness to new wisdoms often results in the deconstruction of traditional beliefs that the chosen ones have carried for years. Upon learning about other forms of spirituality, many realize that the dogmas they once rigidly followed are not the only paths to truth. This can create a moment of spiritual crisis, where the chosen one finds themselves questioning everything they previously believed. However, this crisis is also an opportunity for spiritual rebirth. By letting go of limiting beliefs, the chosen one can begin to build a new spiritual foundation based on their own understanding of the divine and their connection with the universe. The impact of the information age has also brought about the democratization of spiritual knowledge. In the past, it was often necessary to be part of a specific institution or group to access certain teachings or spiritual practices. Now, these teachings are widely available through books, videos, online courses, and virtual communities. This accessibility has allowed the chosen ones to take charge of their own spiritual education, consciously choosing what to learn and practice rather than relying on religious leaders or institutions to guide them. This empowers the chosen ones to become their own spiritual masters, finding within themselves the wisdom and guidance they need. The internet, in particular, has played a vital role in the journey of the chosen ones, providing a space for the free and collaborative sharing of spiritual ideas and practices. Through forums, blogs, videos, and social networks, the chosen ones can connect with others worldwide who share their spiritual quest. These platforms allow the chosen to exchange experiences, learn from each other, and even create new spiritual communities that transcend geographic and cultural boundaries. This global connectivity strengthens the chosen one's sense of belonging, allowing them to know they are not alone on their journey, even if they have distanced themselves from traditional churches or religious institutions. At the same time, this era of unrestricted access to information also challenges the chosen ones to discern wisely what they consume. With so much information available, it can be easy to get lost in a sea of different practices and philosophies. The call, then, is for the chosen ones to develop a sense of spiritual discernment, learning to listen to the inner voice that will guide them to what is truly meaningful and useful for their journey. Not everything found on the internet or in spiritual books will resonate with each individual, and part of the spiritual growth process is learning to filter and assimilate what aligns with one's own path. Another significant aspect of the information age is the emergence of new forms of spiritual expression. Spiritual creativity has expanded as the chosen ones have found new ways to connect with the divine outside traditional methods. For example, practices such as guided meditation, yoga, spiritual artistic expressions, and the use of technologies like mindfulness apps or online spiritual retreats have become common among those seeking a deeper connection with their spirituality. These new forms of spiritual practice provide the chosen ones with more tools to align with their essence and develop a more intimate relationship with the sacred. Additionally, the information age has enabled access to a diversity of global philosophies that expand the spiritual views of the chosen ones. The study of traditions such as Buddhism, Sufism, Taoism, shamanism, and even ancient wisdom philosophies like Stoicism and Hermeticism enriches the spiritual journey. The teachings of these traditions offer new understandings about the purpose of life, the nature of suffering, the importance of compassion, and the practice of divine presence. By incorporating these different wisdoms into their practice, the chosen ones can cultivate a spirituality that is holistic and resonates deeply with their souls. The information age has also highlighted the power of individual spiritual practices. Many chosen ones are rediscovering the value of prayer, meditation, and contemplation as ways to connect directly with the divine without the need for rituals or mediators. These practices allow the chosen to feel closer to the divine on their own terms, strengthening their spiritual autonomy and confidence in their internal connection to the source. Perhaps the most transformative aspect of this information age is that the chosen ones are building a new form of spirituality that is both personal and universal. By embracing a variety of teachings, connecting with other like-minded souls, and committing to their own inner journey, they are helping to create a new spiritual paradigm. This paradigm is not based on dogmas or hierarchies but on a direct and living connection with the divine, one that is nurtured by self-knowledge, compassion, and a continuous quest for spiritual growth. In the end, the information age has offered the chosen ones the possibility of integrating wisdom from different traditions and building a spirituality that is truly their own. There is no longer a need to follow a single path or adhere to a single truth. Instead, the chosen ones are free to explore, learn, and incorporate what resonates with their souls, creating a spiritual journey that is both personal and expansive. This freedom is one of the greatest gifts of the information age, as it allows each chosen one to live their spirituality authentically, in harmony with their inner truth and the greater purpose of their soul. For the chosen, the act of stepping away from the church often emerges as a profound process of healing and reconnection with the sacred. For years, many of these individuals may have followed traditional practices and participated in religious rituals with the hope of finding a deep sense of connection with the divine. However, as their spiritual journey evolves, many begin to realize that the institutional environment is no longer nurturing their spirit in the way they need. This disconnection can be painful initially, as the church may have provided a sense of belonging, community, and faith. However, this separation often signals a call toward something deeper, a profound invitation to genuine spiritual healing. The healing process that unfolds when the chosen decide to leave the church first involves a reassessment of their relationship with the divine. For a long time, this relationship may have been mediated by the church, religious leaders, and established dogmas. The very way in which the divine was conceived and experienced may have been shaped by others' interpretations, rigid beliefs, or religious expectations. Upon leaving this context, the chosen are challenged to redefine their connection with the sacred, now free from the limitations imposed by the institution. This renewed relationship with the divine tends to be more personal, intimate, and above all authentic as it emerges from a deep inner quest. This distancing from the church can be seen as a necessary phase of spiritual detoxification. Just as one steps away from a toxic environment to heal and grow stronger, the chosen realizes that they need time and space away from influences that no longer resonate with their soul. During this period, it is common for them to feel an initial emptiness. The absence of rituals and religious structure may bring a sense of loss, as if something vital is missing. However, this emptiness is, in fact, the sacred space the chosen needs to reconnect with themselves and the divine in a way that is genuinely meaningful. Reconnection with the sacred, then, happens gradually and often in the most unexpected places. For some, this reconnection takes place in nature, where the presence of the divine can be felt in every tree, river, breeze, and starry sky. Nature, with its simplicity and beauty, becomes the temple where the chosen finds the necessary silence to listen to their inner voice and feel the divine's presence in a pure, unmediated way. For others, the reconnection with the sacred may occur during moments of deep introspection, meditation, or personal prayer, away from the noise and distractions of the external world. These moments of solitude offer the chosen the opportunity to align with the essence of the divine within, recognizing that connection to the sacred does not require a building or ritual, but simply an open heart and a receptive mind. It is within this healing process that many chosen ones rediscover true spirituality. This spirituality is not imposed. It is not shaped by social or religious expectations. It arises from within as a natural expression of the soul in its quest for meaning and truth. The chosen learn that true spiritual connection does not depend on dogmas or external practices but on an internal, personal relationship with the sacred. They begin to see that the divine is present everywhere, in everything, and that this connection has no limits. During this process, the chosen one may also discover new spiritual practices that resonate more deeply with their journey. Practices such as meditation, mindfulness, yoga, contemplation, or personal rituals become powerful tools to maintain this connection alive and authentic. By embracing these practices, the chosen one not only reconnects with the divine but also with their own soul, listening to its needs and honoring its inner rhythm. These practices allow the chosen to heal from emotional, spiritual, and even physical wounds that may have been caused by the pressure and conditioning of their previous religious environment. As they distance themselves from the church, the chosen often undergo a process of unlearning. This involves questioning and releasing beliefs that no longer serve their spiritual growth. Many of these beliefs may have been internalized over years, becoming part of the chosen's spiritual identity. However, over time they may prove to be limiting, obstructing the soul's expansion and spiritual development. Unlearning is an essential part of the healing process, as it allows the chosen to free themselves from past bonds and embrace a new vision of themselves and the divine. This journey of healing may also involve forgiveness. The chosen may need to forgive themselves for following a path for so long that, in the end, did not resonate with their soul. There may be feelings of guilt or regret for having committed to practices that now feel empty or meaningless. Additionally, the chosen may need to forgive the church itself, its leaders, or community members who may have caused pain, judgment, or exclusion. This forgiveness does not mean forgetting or minimizing the pain but rather letting go of the emotional weight that hinders spiritual growth. Stepping away from the church also allows the chosen to reconnect with the sacred in a way that is unique and profoundly personal. By setting aside external expectations, the chosen begins to explore their own form of spirituality, discovering what truly nurtures them and connects them to the divine. This process of reconnection is liberating, as it enables the chosen to feel more authentic in their spiritual journey without the need to please or conform to the expectations of an institution. In the end, distancing from the church and the accompanying healing process lead the chosen to a new phase of their spiritual journey, where they feel freer, more connected, and more at peace with themselves and the divine. Spirituality becomes vibrant, dynamic, and deeply personal, allowing the chosen to experience the sacred in every aspect of life. This new relationship with the divine is more authentic, as it emerges from within, from a sincere quest for truth and spiritual connection. The importance of following a higher purpose profoundly resonates with the chosen, as it is the inner call guiding their journey. For many, leaving the church may seem like a rupture, but in truth, it is a response to something greater, something that transcends physical structures and religious traditions. When the chosen hear this call, they feel a need to follow a path more aligned with their true spiritual essence. This higher calling can manifest in various ways. For some, it emerges as a dissatisfaction with religious practices or teachings that no longer resonate with their convictions. For others, it may be a growing sense of discomfort in environments where spirituality is conditioned by rules and dogmas that limit the expression of individual faith. In any case, there is a clear perception that something needs to change. Responding to this call requires courage, as it often means breaking away from familial, social, and religious expectations cultivated over years or even generations. This break is not an act of rebellion or disrespect but a move towards authenticity and personal truth. It is a recognition that the spiritual journey is, above all, an inner quest that cannot be defined by external norms. The chosen understand that following the higher purpose involves embracing uncertainty and opening up to the unknown. They are willing to leave behind the comfort of ready-made answers and established practices in exchange for a deeper connection with the divine. This connection is not confined by the walls of a church or the rituals taught to them. On the contrary, it transcends physical space and religious boundaries. There is a decisive moment in every chosen one's life when they realize that their role in the world goes beyond what institutions have shaped. This moment is marked by a sense of awakening, where the chosen feels called to something greater, something that cannot be contained within religious or social structures. This calling is an invitation to live according to the spiritual principles revealed to them in their personal journey, rather than by parameters established by others. However, following this higher purpose is not an easy task. It requires discipline, commitment, and, above all, faith. Faith that, even without traditional guidelines, the spiritual path will be illuminated. This faith sustains the chosen when they face challenges and moments of doubt. They know that true spirituality is not measured by adherence to external rules but by the integrity of living according to what they believe to be true and divine. Another significant aspect of following the higher purpose is understanding that each chosen one has a unique mission to fulfill. This mission cannot be dictated by others but must be discovered and followed individually. A chosen one's mission may not be understood or accepted by those around them, but this does not diminish its importance. On the contrary, it is precisely this uniqueness that distinguishes the chosen as someone called to live in alignment with something much greater than themselves. This is why, when answering the call for a higher purpose, many chosen ones experience a spiritual liberation. They are no longer confined by limits imposed by others. Instead, they follow a path that is their own, authentic, and truly sacred. They connect with the divine in a direct and personal way, without intermediaries or barriers. Following a higher purpose also means serving. Not in a conventional way or limited by religious structures, but rather serving in ways that the chosen one's heart and soul feel are right. This can mean helping others in ways that traditional churches might not encourage or even ignore. It can mean bringing a message of compassion and love to places often forgotten or neglected. The chosen ones know that pursuing this higher purpose places them on a path of constant growth. They know there will be obstacles, moments of loneliness, and misunderstanding, but they also recognize that it's through these challenges that their faith is strengthened. They accept that spiritual growth is not always comfortable, but it is always necessary. By leaving the church and following a greater purpose, the chosen ones discover a spirituality that is alive, fluid, and constantly evolving. They understand that the spiritual journey is not a final destination but a continuous path of self-discovery, connection with the divine, and service to humanity. They become living examples of how faith can transcend physical boundaries and institutionalized rituals, something that blossoms in the freedom to follow the heart. The chosen, in answering this call, are aligned with something greater than themselves. They are in tune with the divine flow that guides them to their true mission on earth. And in doing so, they find inner peace and spiritual fulfillment that often cannot be found within traditional church structures. This peace comes from the knowledge that they are living in alignment with their soul's purpose, fulfilling the role they were destined to play in this life. The impact of the information age on the spiritual journey of the chosen is undeniable. We are living in a time when knowledge is more accessible than ever, allowing the chosen ones to explore various spiritual traditions and philosophies more deeply, expanding their views and understanding beyond the confines of traditional religions. For many, access to this information was the catalyst that led them to question the beliefs and practices they once followed blindly. The internet has opened doors to knowledge from diverse cultures, beliefs, and spiritual teachings that were once restricted to small groups or geographically distant. Now, with the touch of a button, the chosen can access ancient texts of Eastern wisdom, listen to spiritual masters from different traditions, and participate in global discussions about spirituality. This wealth of information creates an unprecedented opportunity for spiritual growth. The chosen can now compare different teachings and find parallels that would otherwise remain hidden. They can identify universal truths that permeate all spiritual traditions and, through this, build a more solid and expansive foundation for their spiritual journey. However, this abundance of information can also be overwhelming. With so many voices and perspectives available, it can be challenging to discern what deeply resonates with one's spiritual truth. This is where the chosen's intuition becomes vital. Although knowledge is within reach, sharp spiritual discernment is needed to navigate this vast web of ideas and find what truly nourishes the soul and aligns with the divine purpose. Many chosen ones begin to realize that spiritual truth is not confined to any single religious tradition. As they explore global philosophies, Buddhism, Sufism, Kabbalah, or even indigenous practices, they encounter teachings that resonate deeply, even though these teachings may seem distant from the dogmas they grew up with. This recognition that spirituality is a universal force permeating all cultures and ages brings freedom and an expansion for the soul that is often not found in closed religious practices. By stepping away from the church and exploring this universal wisdom, the chosen are not rejecting faith but rather expanding their understanding of the divine. They recognize that spiritual truth can be found in many forms and that the divine speaks through different languages and cultures. What once seemed like a rejection of religious structures is, in fact, a broader quest for a more authentic connection with the sacred. Furthermore, the information age allows the chosen ones to connect with others worldwide who are on a similar journey. In the past, loneliness was a common characteristic of the chosen's path, as they often felt isolated in their local communities. Now, with the internet and social networks, they can find communities of kindred souls who share the same spiritual restlessness and seek something deeper and more authentic. These virtual connections can be incredibly powerful, offering a space for support, the exchange of ideas, and shared growth. However, it's important to remember that while the information age brings countless benefits, it also requires a balanced approach. The chosen must be careful not to lose themselves in the excess of information and opinions. They must remember that true wisdom lies not only in intellectual knowledge but also in lived experience and personal spiritual growth. Information is a powerful tool, but true growth happens in the practical application of this knowledge in their daily lives and the continuous quest for a deeper connection with the divine. Another important point is that the information age allows the chosen to challenge the traditional narratives imposed by religious institutions. By having access to alternative interpretations and teachings, they can see more clearly how certain religious structures may have distorted or limited spiritual understanding over time. This does not mean that all religions are wrong, but it often means that rigid dogmas can obscure the spiritual essence that should be the primary focus. As they integrate this new wisdom into their lives, the chosen undergo an internal transformation. They stop being passive followers of an inherited faith and become active seekers of their truth. This process is often liberating, yet also challenging, as it implies a greater personal responsibility toward their spiritual journey. There are no longer leaders or institutions dictating what is right or wrong. It is up to each chosen one to discern the path that resonates most with their soul and connection with the divine. Ultimately, the information age offers the chosen the chance to free themselves from beliefs and practices that no longer serve their spiritual growth. It allows them to broaden their vision and incorporate new forms of wisdom into their lives, putting them in a unique position to create a spirituality that is alive, dynamic, and deeply personal. They are no longer limited by a single tradition but are free to explore, learn, and grow in harmony with the divine flow in their lives. This is the power of the information age for the chosen. The ability to access wisdom that transcends time and space, resonating deeply with their souls. By using this tool with discernment, the chosen can follow a spiritual path that is truly authentic, free from the constraints of traditions, and open to the vastness of human and divine experience. The process of healing and reconnection with the sacred is a fundamental stage in the spiritual journey of the chosen who decide to distance themselves from the church. This distancing may initially bring a feeling of loss or even emptiness, as the chosen ones often relied on religious structures and rituals to connect with the divine. However, this phase represents a unique opportunity for them to reassess and reshape their relationship with the sacred in a more intimate and authentic way. By leaving behind the dependence on the religious institution, the chosen are forced to look within themselves for what they have always sought externally. This process is essentially healing, as it leads them to confront their beliefs, fears, and limitations. What was once defined by dogmas and rules now becomes a personal quest for truth, and this quest requires a profound inner dive. Spiritual healing in this case does not happen quickly or simply. It is a process of detaching from the expectations placed upon them by others, the church, or even society. The chosen must learn to silence the external voices that told them how they should connect with the divine and instead trust their intuition. This can be challenging, as many have been conditioned to believe they were unworthy of making this direct connection without the mediation of religious authority. But with time and practice, they discover that divinity has always been within them, waiting to be discovered and lived in a personal way. This reconnection with the sacred often happens in silence and solitude. For many chosen ones, nature becomes a place of profound spiritual communion. Stepping away from the noise and distractions of the world, they find in the simplicity of nature a pure representation of the divine. The sound of the wind, the flow of a river, the sunrise, all these elements begin to speak directly to the soul, conveying wisdom that transcends words and dogmas. This is where healing truly happens, for there is no need for explanations or justifications. It is simply pure presence, a reconnection with oneself and the divine. Healing also involves re-evaluating wounds that may have been caused by experiences within churches. Many chosen ones leave their religious institutions carrying hurt, frustrations, and even spiritual traumas from years of conforming to rules that didn't resonate with their souls. To move forward in a healthy way on their spiritual journey, these wounds need healing. This process often involves forgiveness, not only of others but also of themselves for remaining in environments that no longer serve them. This forgiveness is liberating, allowing the chosen to release the weight of the past and open up to new forms of living their spirituality. A significant part of healing is recognizing that the relationship with the sacred can manifest in countless ways. There's no single formula for connecting with the divine, and each chosen one discovers that their journey is unique, with spirituality taking forms they may have never imagined. Some may find comfort and connection through meditation, others through art, music, or dance, and still others through serving others. What matters is that this spiritual practice resonates with each person's internal truth. Spiritual healing, in this sense, is also about releasing rigid expectations and forms of relating to the divine, allowing each individual to create their own way of worship and connection. This healing process isn't merely transitional but an invitation for a deeper reconnection with the sacred. By stepping away from religious practices that no longer serve, the chosen are, in fact, returning to their purest spiritual roots. They're rediscovering what it means to be an embodied soul seeking purpose and connection. It's a return to the essential, to what transcends rituals, dogmas, and forms, found in the heart of every human being. During this reconnection process, many chosen ones also discover new spiritual paths. They might be drawn to other spiritual traditions that speak more deeply to their soul, whether through mysticism, Eastern meditative practices, or ancient wisdom teachings that resonate with universal truth. These new paths are not seen as a replacement of their original faith but as extensions of their spiritual journey. What's happening is an expansion of spiritual perspective, an opening to new ways of connecting with the divine and experiencing the sacred in all things. This healing and reconnection process may also reveal the need to create new personal spiritual practices. Many chosen ones, upon leaving behind structured church rituals, feel a desire to develop their own forms of practicing spirituality. This could include creating personal altars, performing gratitude rituals, daily meditation, or even incorporating energy healing practices. What's essential is that these practices are authentic and meaningful to the chosen one. There's no right or wrong as long as the practice brings a sense of peace, connection, and purpose. Healing and reconnecting with the sacred also bring a new view of God. For many chosen ones, God ceases to be a distant, punitive figure and becomes a loving, compassionate presence, always by their side. This new understanding of God is liberating, allowing the chosen one to see the divine in all things and experiences, even in the most challenging ones. God is no longer someone to be pleased or feared, but rather a loving force that guides and supports each soul's journey. Ultimately, stepping away from the church is not an abandonment of faith but a movement toward a more personal, authentic, and transformative spirituality. The chosen are on a path of healing and reconnection with the sacred that transcends the limitations of religious structures, leading them to a deeper, more liberating truth. The importance of following a higher purpose is a central theme in the journey of those chosen who decide to step away from churches. For many, this departure isn't motivated by mere dissatisfaction or disillusionment with religious institutions but by something far deeper, an inner call to live according to a spiritual purpose that goes beyond the bounds of organized religion. This call is a powerful force, an internal guide that compels them to follow a unique path, often misunderstood by conventional social norms. This higher purpose often emerges as an inner voice, a feeling that there's more to be lived and explored, something that transcends the dogmas and rituals that churches offer. The chosen ones feel called to a spiritual mission that involves not only their own evolution but also a greater service to humanity and the world around them. They begin to realize that spirituality cannot be confined to a building, a set of rules, or a specific practice. Instead, it must be lived in every moment, in every choice, and in every action. Following this higher purpose requires a great deal of courage. Leaving a church, which often provides safety, community, and a sense of belonging, can be a daunting step. Many chosen ones experience feelings of loneliness and uncertainty throughout this process. Yet, the inner call is so strong that they cannot ignore it. On a deep level, they understand that this decision to follow a different path is essential for their spiritual growth and for fulfilling their life's mission. Part of following this purpose involves breaking away from traditions that no longer resonate with the chosen one's inner truth. Religious traditions, as meaningful as they may have once been, can start to feel restrictive or outdated. The rigid structure of many churches leaves no room for the flexibility needed for the spirit to evolve and expand. The chosen realize that to truly live their higher purpose, they need to free themselves from these restrictions and embrace a spirituality that is more fluid, open, and adaptable to their individual experiences and needs. This higher purpose also involves a process of ongoing self-exploration and discovery. The chosen begin to ask themselves, what is my mission? What am I really here to do? These questions do not have easy answers and often require them to dive deep into themselves, confronting fears, doubts, and uncertainties. Yet, it's through this process that they find their true calling, which may not fit traditional social or religious expectations. As the chosen ones follow their purpose, they also begin to realize that their mission cannot be confined to a religious community or a single set of beliefs. They are called to impact the lives of others in ways that transcend religious boundaries and divisions. Their mission might involve healing, teaching, inspiring, or guiding others in their own spiritual journeys. The impact they have on the world is not measured by the number of sermons they preach or the prayers they recite, but by the way they live their lives in alignment with their divine purpose. This notion of a higher purpose also challenges the chosen to question their beliefs about success and fulfillment. In a materialistic world, success is often measured by the amount of money one makes, social status, or public recognition. However, the chosen know that true success is something far deeper. It is rooted in living according to one's own truth and fulfilling the mission given by the divine. This might mean letting go of material gains, status, or even relationships that are not aligned with this purpose. But in return, they gain something far more valuable, a sense of inner peace and spiritual fulfillment that no amount of money or recognition can provide. The higher purpose also requires that the chosen ones become spiritual leaders, even if this leadership doesn't manifest in a traditional way. They don't need to be on pulpits or lead large congregations to fulfill their mission. Often, their leadership is expressed through the example they set in their own lives. They show others how to live authentically, how to follow their own spiritual intuition, and how to trust in the divine plan even amidst challenges. Their presence in the world is a form of spiritual leadership, inspiring others to seek their own truth and live by it. Furthermore, following this higher purpose often places the chosen ones in direct conflict with social norms and expectations. The world around them may not understand their choices. Family members, friends, and even members of the religious community may question why they decided to leave the church or follow a more individualized spiritual path. However, the chosen understand that their mission is not to please others or conform to external expectations. They are called to follow the voice of their soul, even if it means facing criticism, rejection, or misunderstanding. The ability to pursue the higher purpose despite difficulties is what sets the chosen apart. They know that their spiritual journey won't always be easy, but they also know that the greatest spiritual rewards come from living according to their inner truth. They are guided by a force greater than the desire for external approval or material success. This force is the divine call that impels them to follow a path of spiritual evolution, service to others, and the fulfillment of their soul's purpose. Ultimately, the chosen one's higher purpose is about expansion and transformation, their own and that of the world around them. By following their purpose, they not only transform themselves spiritually but also help transform the world. Their journey is one of light, love, and spiritual awakening. And it is through this journey that they fulfill their divine mission, bringing more awareness, compassion, and truth to the world. The path of the chosen is a journey that challenges conventional norms, especially when it involves leaving the church and following a more authentic and individualized spiritual path. Along their journey, the chosen encounter a series of challenges, not only external ones but also internal ones, as they question the structures in which they grew up and the traditions they once considered unquestionable. However, stepping away from the church does not necessarily mean a loss of faith. On the contrary, it often represents an even deeper connection with the divine. When chosen ones make the decision to leave the church, they're responding to a call urging them to seek a more authentic and meaningful spiritual truth. For many, this call can't be ignored. It arises from a profound sense that something greater awaits beyond the church walls, something that transcends the rituals, dogmas, and limitations of a religious institution. This journey away from the church is not an act of rebellion but an affirmation of their devotion to their spiritual quest and personal growth. Part of this process involves recognizing that organized religious traditions, however well-intentioned, don't always fulfill the spiritual needs of those seeking a deeper connection with the divine. Standardized religious practices, repetitive rituals, and fixed doctrines often fail to provide the space needed for chosen ones to explore and live their spirituality authentically. They come to realize that their faith cannot be confined to a set of rules or practices that no longer resonate with their inner truth. Leaving the church is often accompanied by an intense period of reflection and self-exploration. Chosen ones begin asking themselves, what does it truly mean to live a spiritual life? They understand that the answer to this question cannot be found outside but within themselves. Spirituality, for them, is no longer about following external rituals or adhering to specific dogmas. It becomes a deeply personal journey of self-discovery, connection with the divine within, and alignment with the soul's purpose. This journey of self-discovery can be challenging, especially when chosen ones face the unknown. Leaving the church often means abandoning a sense of community, security, and familiarity. Yet, they know that this transition is necessary for their spiritual growth. They understand that their faith is not tied to a building or congregation but to their direct relationship with the divine. And it is this relationship, free from institutional limitations, that allows them to live their spirituality more authentically. Another important aspect of this journey is reevaluating their relationship with the sacred. Many chosen ones find that, upon leaving the church, they begin to experience a deeper reconnection with the divine. This reconnection may happen in unexpected places, in nature, meditation, solitude, or moments of introspection. They realize that the sacred is not confined to a specific place or set of religious practices. Instead, it is present in every aspect of life, waiting to be discovered and experienced in new ways. The journey of chosen ones also involves a process of spiritual healing. For many, the decision to leave the church may have been motivated by painful experiences within the institution, disappointments, judgments, or feelings of not belonging. By stepping away, they embark on a process of healing these spiritual wounds, allowing themselves to rediscover the divine in a way that brings peace, joy, and a renewed sense of purpose. This healing is not just about leaving the past behind but embracing a new way of being and living spirituality. Throughout this journey, chosen ones are called to redefine what it means to worship. They begin to see that true worship is not about following rituals or dogmas but about living a life aligned with inner truth. For them, worship means being in constant communion with the divine, in thoughts, actions, and intentions. It means living authentically and compassionately, honoring the divine that resides within them and in everything around them. This redefinition of worship also challenges chosen ones to question their relationship with faith. They understand that faith is not something found in a sermon or a repeated prayer but in their unwavering trust in the spiritual journey they're undertaking. Even when facing doubts, uncertainties, or loneliness, they know that their faith is stronger than any institution or tradition. They trust in the divine plan and the inner guidance leading them on their journey, knowing they are exactly where they need to be. Their spiritual journey also requires chosen ones to embrace the responsibility for their own spiritual evolution. Without the structured support of a church or religious leaders, they realize they are solely responsible for their spiritual growth. This requires discipline, dedication, and a willingness to dive into their own soul, confronting both the shadows and the light they find along the way. However, it is through this process that they undergo profound transformation, allowing them to live in a more authentic, free, and connected way with the divine. Finally, the journey of the chosen ones is a journey of service. While they may have distanced themselves from the church, they understand that their spiritual mission is to serve others in meaningful ways. For them, service is not something that happens only within a church or religious context. Instead, it's a natural expression of their spirituality. They are here to bring light, healing, and inspiration to the world, and they know they can fulfill this mission in ways that extend beyond traditional structures. Following this path of authenticity, healing, and service is challenging, but it is also a blessing. Chosen ones know that by stepping away from institutional limitations, they are coming closer to their spiritual truth and higher purpose. They understand that leaving the church is not an abandonment of their faith but a discovery of a truer, deeper way to live it. The impact of the information age and the openness to new wisdom is a crucial part of the spiritual journey for chosen ones who decide to leave the church. We are living in a time where access to knowledge is almost limitless. The internet and social media connect us to diverse spiritual traditions, practices, and global philosophies, allowing the chosen to broaden their perspectives and feel part of a wider spiritual community. This constant flow of new information and teachings helps to enrich their journeys, providing new tools to deepen their connection with the divine. For many, this openness to different forms of wisdom begins to fill gaps that traditional churches may have left in their spiritual lives. By exploring different philosophies and practices, chosen ones discover new ways to connect with the divine. This might include deeper meditations, mindfulness practices, ancestral healing rituals, or even ancient spiritual teachings that resonate deeply with their souls. In every piece of knowledge they encounter, chosen ones realize that there is so much more to explore and that spirituality goes beyond the limits of a single institution. It's essential to recognize that this access to global wisdom has, for many, catalyzed a new awakening. When chosen ones encounter new spiritual perspectives and practices, they begin to see that there are other ways to relate to the divine that aren't limited to standardized dogmas or rituals. This opens up space for deeper, more authentic questions, challenging old beliefs that were accepted by tradition but no longer resonate with their inner truth. The information age also offers the opportunity to connect with like-minded souls worldwide, creating spiritual support networks that transcend geographical borders. Many chosen ones find themselves part of a new form of spiritual community, where people from different cultures and traditions share their journeys and support one another. These connections help create a renewed sense of belonging, even outside traditional church settings, showing that spiritual communion does not depend on a building or established rituals. With access to this global wisdom, chosen ones also feel more empowered to integrate different practices into their spiritual lives. They realize that spirituality is not a straight line or a single formula but a fluid path that can be enriched by multiple sources. This freedom allows them to explore and combine various practices that help them feel more aligned with the divine. The wisdom found in sacred texts from different cultures or in contemporary spiritual masters can become an integral part of their journey, helping them expand their awareness and strengthen their spiritual connection. However, this openness to new wisdom comes with challenges. When exposed to so many different perspectives, chosen ones must be mindful in discerning what truly resonates with their inner truth. Not all knowledge encountered is relevant or applicable to their spiritual journey, and part of the growth process is learning to filter and absorb only what strengthens them and guides them toward their higher purpose. This discernment process is essential to ensure that chosen ones remain on the path of authenticity and do not get lost in teachings that might detract from their direct connection with the divine. The information age offers an abundance of possibilities but also demands a commitment to spiritual integrity. Chosen ones must remember that, while they may find value in many traditions and practices, their spiritual journey is unique and personal. It's not necessary to adopt every practice or belief encountered. Instead, the focus should be on following what brings them closer to their spiritual purpose and intimate relationship with the divine. Thus, as chosen ones continue to explore new wisdom and integrate different perspectives into their lives, they become active creators of their own spiritual journeys. They stop relying on a single source of guidance and start trusting more in their intuition and discernment. This empowers them to become leaders of their own spiritual journey, taking responsibility for their growth and evolution. This freedom to explore various forms of wisdom and integrate teachings that resonate with their souls is one of the greatest gifts of the information age. It allows chosen ones to follow their paths with greater clarity and confidence, knowing that they are not limited to a single vision or tradition. They can honor and learn from multiple sources of wisdom but always return to their inner truth, the true guide of their journey. The process of healing and reconnecting with the sacred is a fundamental phase for the chosen ones who decide to leave the church. When a chosen one distances themselves from conventional religious structures, it's often because they are seeking a more personal, intimate, and authentic relationship with the divine. This departure can be seen as an act of courage, as it represents breaking away from what was familiar and safe in exchange for a journey of self-discovery, healing, and deeper spiritual connection. For many chosen ones, this process begins with the need for spiritual healing. During their participation in religious institutions, they may have accumulated emotional and spiritual scars due to restrictive dogmas, judgments, or even experiences of hypocrisy within the religious community. These wounds often create a disconnection from the divine, leading the chosen one to question their faith and practices. Distancing from the church in this case is not an abandonment of God but an inner call to heal these wounds and redefine their relationship with the sacred. This healing process is not immediate. It happens gradually as the chosen one allows themselves time for introspection and silence. For many, healing begins when they step away from the noise and pressure of religious obligations, creating space for a purer and more genuine connection with the divine. This reconnection may occur in unexpected, subtle ways, through meditation, silent prayer, walks in nature, or deep moments of solitary reflection. The sacred begins to reveal itself in simple yet powerful ways, beyond the walls of the church. Leaving the church also creates space for the chosen one to explore new forms of spirituality that may not have been allowed or encouraged before. They may begin to explore spiritual practices from other traditions, such as using mantras, meditation, mindfulness practices, or even ancestral healing rituals. These methods help open the chosen one's heart and mind to new ways of experiencing the divine, broadening their perception of spirituality and simultaneously aiding in healing old wounds. During this healing process, many chosen ones rediscover nature as a sacred space. The simplicity of nature, with its inherent harmony and beauty, becomes a sanctuary of peace and connection. In the stillness of a forest or the sound of ocean waves, chosen ones begin to feel God's presence in a more palpable way. Nature possesses a healing power, and many chosen ones turn to it to restore their energy, clear their minds, and open their hearts to the sacred. It's a place where spirituality unfolds organically, without structured rituals or intermediaries. This phase of reconnecting with the sacred also involves a deep reunion with the self. Free from external expectations and the pressure to conform, the chosen one begins to rediscover themselves on a deeper level. They realize that the divine has always been within them, and that the spiritual journey is, in essence, an inner journey. This doesn't mean that the divine is separate from the outer world, but rather that the source of spiritual connection has always been within the heart of the chosen one. This understanding brings a profound sense of peace and clarity. Part of this healing process also involves releasing limiting beliefs that were absorbed over a religious life. Many chosen ones may have internalized the idea that only by following certain rules and rituals could they be at peace with God. However, as they distance themselves from the church, they begin to see that these beliefs were human constructs, not divine requirements. God, the divine or the sacred as they choose to call it, does not demand conformity to a rigid set of rules for spiritual connection to occur. What matters is the authenticity and sincerity with which the chosen one lives their faith. Healing, therefore, also involves forgiveness, both of oneself and of others. The chosen one needs to forgive themselves for having followed beliefs that no longer resonate with their truth. They also need to forgive religious leaders and communities that may have hurt them or made them feel inadequate. This forgiveness does not mean justifying or forgetting the pains of the past, but releasing the emotional energy that binds the chosen one to these negative experiences. Only with true forgiveness can healing be complete, allowing the chosen one to move forward on their spiritual journey with a lighter heart. Over time, the chosen one begins to realize that their connection with the sacred is stronger and more authentic than ever. They discover that the divine is not limited to a temple or ritual but is present in all aspects of life. Every moment can become an act of worship. Every action can be a prayer. The chosen one then begins to live their life more consciously, more connected, and more spiritualized, regardless of external circumstances. This process of healing and reconnecting with the sacred is ultimately a journey of self-knowledge and acceptance. The chosen one understands that their spiritual worth does not depend on the approval of others or on their participation in religious institutions. Their spirituality is theirs, unique and non-transferable, and their journey is as valid and sacred as any other. By finding the sacred within themselves and all around, the chosen one finally feels at peace. Following a greater purpose is one of the most fundamental aspects of a chosen one's life. Throughout their spiritual journey, many encounter an inner calling, a force that drives them to seek something beyond the limits they once knew. This calling is deep and often inescapable. It's not a search for superficial or temporary achievements, but rather for a higher meaning, something that transcends the traditions and expectations imposed by society or religious institutions. When a chosen one begins to sense this calling, they feel an urgency to take a different path. Often, this path is not clear at first, but the feeling that something more awaits them is undeniable. At this point, stepping away from rigid structures like churches becomes inevitable. The church, with its dogmas, rules, and rituals, may have been a fundamental part of the chosen one's spiritual development at one point, but the purpose of their soul demands a freer, more authentic journey. Following this greater purpose means having the courage to break with what no longer resonates with their inner essence. For many, this may be seen as an act of rebellion or even disobedience, but in reality, it's an act of profound fidelity to their soul. The chosen one understands that to fulfill their spiritual mission, they must be faithful to the inner call they feel, even if it means leaving behind a structure that once seemed necessary. This process can be painful, as it often involves breaking away from people, traditions, and practices that were an integral part of their lives for a long time. However, true spiritual awakening requires this courage. The greater purpose cannot be realized within the limitations of an institution. Institutions tend to create barriers and boundaries defining what is or isn't acceptable within their context. But a chosen one's purpose transcends these boundaries. It extends beyond the physical walls of a church and the norms it imposes. It's a call to live fully, integrating the divine into all facets of life, without restrictions or divisions. This call to follow a greater purpose also requires unwavering trust in the spiritual path. Sometimes, it may seem that by leaving the church, the chosen one is moving away from God or their faith. But in reality, they are drawing closer to their true connection with the divine. By breaking away from what no longer serves their journey, they create space for new forms of spirituality, new practices, and new connections that resonate more deeply with their soul. This journey of following a greater purpose is also marked by moments of solitude. Often, the chosen one is called to walk solitary roads, where few can accompany them. Solitude, however, is not a punishment but an opportunity for introspection and spiritual strengthening. It is in solitude that the chosen one finds their true essence, free from external influences that once shaped their beliefs and practices. They learn to trust their own intuition, their own connection with the divine, and rely less on third-party instructions. Following a greater purpose also means being willing to face others' misunderstandings. Those who remain within traditional religious structures often can't understand why the chosen one decided to leave. They may interpret this as a loss of faith or a betrayal of the religious community. But the chosen one knows that their journey is unique, and although they may be misunderstood by others, they must continue to follow their inner truth. Finally, this path toward a greater purpose is one of continuous evolution. The chosen one never reaches an endpoint because the spiritual purpose is dynamic, constantly expanding and deepening. Each step taken toward this mission brings new lessons, challenges, and ways of connecting with the divine. Along this journey, the chosen one begins to see that by following their purpose, they not only find personal fulfillment but also contribute to the greater good. Their spiritual journey becomes a beacon for others who are also seeking a deeper connection with their own essence and with the divine. Following a greater purpose is, therefore, the essence of what it means to be chosen. It is not an easy task, but it brings profound inner peace and a genuine connection with the divine. It's a journey of courage, trust, and authenticity, where the chosen one learns to trust their own spiritual intuition, break free from imposed limitations, and follow a path that is truly their own. By doing so, they fulfill their divine mission, bringing light and wisdom to the world around them. The path of the chosen ones at its core is not a simple journey. It is a profound process of transformation, marked by challenges and often solitude. However, distancing oneself from traditional religious structures such as the church does not represent a loss of faith. Rather, it is a step towards something more authentic and personal. For the chosen ones, true spirituality is not found in repetitive rituals or rigid dogmas, but in a living and pulsating connection with the divine that transcends the limitations imposed by institutions. This path is full of nuances. For many, the decision to leave the church comes after a long period of introspection and questioning. They begin to realize that while the church was once a crucial part of their spiritual development, it now seems to restrict their freedom to connect with the divine. The weight of tradition, social expectations, and dogma seem to oppose the true spiritual freedom they seek. This often painful process of separation is, in reality, a journey of liberation. The chosen begin to understand that the divine is not limited to a physical location or a set series of practices. They recognize that true spiritual connection is internal and that each person has their own unique path to connect with God or the spiritual force guiding their life. Distancing from the church allows the chosen to explore new ways of connecting with the sacred, ways that are more aligned with their individual spiritual needs and the purpose of their soul. Often, this journey of distancing is also accompanied by a rediscovery of nature as an expression of the divine. The silence and peace found in nature provide a sacred space where the chosen can reflect and connect deeply and personally. Walking among the trees, watching the sunrise, or feeling the wind on their face, they realize that the divine presence is everywhere, flowing in every aspect of the natural world, and that this connection can be as or more powerful than any ritual performed within a religious building. The search for spiritual truth also leads the chosen to integrate teachings from various spiritual traditions. Rather than limiting themselves to a single doctrine, they explore philosophies and practices from different cultures and eras. This doesn't mean a complete rejection of their original faith, but rather an expansion of their understanding of the divine. They may find value in both the teachings of Jesus and the lessons of Buddha, or draw wisdom from ancient sacred texts while practicing meditation or other forms of spiritual contemplation. By embracing this diversity of wisdom, the chosen build a rich and multifaceted spirituality that reflects their search for universal truth. However, this journey of spiritual expansion is not always understood by those who remain within traditional structures. The chosen may face criticism or even rejection from family members, friends, or religious community members. For many, the decision to leave the church is seen as an affront or betrayal of faith, but for the chosen, it is simply a natural evolution in their spiritual journey. They understand that each person has their own path to follow, and while they may distance themselves from traditional practices and rituals, it does not mean they have abandoned their faith. In fact, many chosen ones feel that their faith deepens after leaving the church. Without the distractions of rituals and social obligations, they can focus more fully on their direct connection with the divine. They learn to trust their own spiritual intuition, recognize the signs and guidance that the universe sends them, and cultivate a more intimate and personal relationship with God. For them, faith ceases to be something practiced only on weekends or at specific moments and becomes a constant part of their daily life, present in every thought, action, and decision. In the end, the path of the chosen is a journey of self-discovery and spiritual evolution. They understand that the divine is not confined to a building or set of rules but is present in everything and everyone, accessible at any time and in any place. By following their own path, the chosen come closer to God, finding a spiritual freedom that allows them to live more fully, authentically, and in harmony with their soul's purpose. This journey is not easy, and the chosen know it. But along the way they discover that each challenge, each moment of doubt or solitude, is an opportunity to grow, learn, and come even closer to their divine essence. They find strength in their faith, even outside conventional structures, and continue to walk their path confidently, knowing they are being guided by something greater and deeper than any institution can offer. The journey of the chosen one who decides to leave the church is not an abandonment of faith, but a step toward a more authentic spirituality, where the connection with the divine is guided by inner truth and a personal calling. When a chosen one chooses to walk their path outside religious structures, they are responding to an inner voice that calls for the freedom to grow and evolve in a deeper spiritual dimension. The path of the chosen ones is full of challenges but also brings invaluable spiritual rewards. It is a path where the heart is the true temple and the soul is the guide. Leaving the church does not mean leaving God. On the contrary, it can be an opportunity to find God in their purest and truest form, in the small things, the silence of nature, the simplicity of daily life, and in the spiritual practices that nourish the spirit. This journey requires courage, as going against what is traditionally accepted is always challenging. But it is also a demonstration of trust in the greater purpose that each chosen one carries in their heart. By following their path, the chosen open doors to a spirituality that transcends the boundaries of dogmas and institutions, living a faith that is alive and free from constraints. So, if you feel called to leave the church and follow a unique spiritual path, know that this decision is valid and part of your unique journey as a divine being. Remember that what matters is the sincerity of your quest, the authenticity of your faith, and the openness of your heart to divine wisdom, which is everywhere, in every moment, and in every breath. If this message touched your heart, if you resonate with this calling, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your own experiences in the comments. Together, we can create a community of awakened souls who, even outside traditional institutions, continue to seek and live spiritual truth fully and authentically. Your journey matters, and you are not alone in it. Let's keep walking together toward the light and truth that each of us carries within.